What is going on, everyone? How you all doing? Welcome back to yet another Warski Live. Hope you're all doing fantastic. This is a long-awaited episode that people have been waiting for. I'm with JF again, co-hosting. What's up, JF?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, and yeah, sorry, we were all late. I was messaging JF, yo, I'm gonna be late. He's like, I'm gonna be late. Spencer was late. Everyone was late. So sorry about that, guys. But we're all here, we're all live, and we're all well and ready for this debate. Yeah, so in this debate, I will be moderating, and JF will be on the side of Richard Spencer. Isn't that right, JF?
Yeah.
Is my camera laggy?
It's a little bit yeah, it does make skips.
I have the internet providers coming in tomorrow to be checking it out and fixing that stuff. So if I go off camera, it's just so I don't want the stream to crash. All right. And then on the opposing side of JF and Richard Spencer, we got V and Arch Warhammer. What's up, guys?
Hello, NB. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show. Actually, people, I'm sure a lot of people don't know who you are. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I can do a basic introduction. I'm Arch Warhammer. I primarily do gaming stuff, particularly Warhammer 40k, which is a tabletop fantasy war game. And I've been dabbling in politics for a fair bit of time. V asked me to come on because he figured I might be able to make some points, so I hope to live up to his expectations.
Well, also to pop your cherry in an actual debate, because the feminists didn't want to talk to you, so...
That is true. I have offered. They didn't want to.
No, I don't think they ever want to talk to anyone, to be honest with you. All right.
When I heard I was debating Arch Warhammer, I was expecting this, heavily tattooed, white nationalism 1.0 person who might be like executing people on camera or something. I mean, basically, I'm disappointed.
You are free to be.
That's why I agreed to this. But yeah,
That'll
someone was going to have acid thrown in their face or something. But I guess we'll just talk.
The Islamic
sure
experience.
I'm sure you would love the 40k universe, Richard. It is basically full-on space Nazi fascism and kill all Xenos. It should be right up your alley, I think.
It has ethno-states in space as well, with the elite warrior class defending them.
Yeah. Well, I will upgrade from Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, which is probably the last video game I've played.
Yo, and Rich, I want to ask you, how have things been since your last time on the show? Was you versus Sargon?
Well, I mean, that was kind of a cultural watershed, if I don't say so myself. I mean, in our internet sphere, and I was very pleased with how it went, and I did think that I won, and so on. But I guess I think about that whenever I have a conversation with an opposing person. But it seems to have touched Sargon and his sphere, and it actually challenged them to rethink what they're doing. And so Sargon has changed after the debate, and so it wasn't just a mere fact that I won on points or something, but he actually has rethought his position and has created a collective of individualists of sorts. So I think it really was a classic debate, one for the ages. In our 21st century internet world, it was Lincoln Douglas, I guess.
Yeah. And hey V, do you want to tell people what's happened to you today?
No, I'm fine. I'm not gonna go into that.
All right. But I have to say, the last debate. Sorry, who did you debate last time you were on the show?
I think I was on JF's channel and I was debating Enoch and alternative hypothesis. On this show in particular, I was when Sargon debated Richard. I was at the end.
Oh yes, no, but you also were on the show and you debated someone else, and you did very, very well, actually. In fact, JF and I were.
I remember. The guy with less testosterone than me, which is the Greg, I believe, the one get all case in jail.
Despite the fact that you complain against blood sports on your Twitter feed, we used you as an example of someone who was made better at debate through blood sport, someone who actually learned.
Yeah, what was the points that you were saying, JF, that V has actually evolved his mindset on?
Yeah,
what was
for example, on the question of immigration, V used to be saying stuff like, "Oh, I don't care if medical doctors come from outside the country and they replace my medical doctors." Today, he's much more careful when using these words, and he's now acknowledging the importance of a country to protect its people from a replacement by immigration. So he has changed his focus, and I believe, I don't know, but I believe that he's done this through discussion and through realizing that his previous view was untenable. The only view that I'm going to select people based on merit doesn't make sense for a people to maintain its own structure and maintain its own genetic existence.
Excellent. And okay, so I guess we could start off with you, Arch, and ask you, what are your main points of contention with someone like Richard Spencer or the alt-right in general, or maybe JF's views? What would be your main point of contention with them?
Okay. Well, as a Norwegian, my main contention, I'll give you one for both of them, shall I? For Richard, I'd like to ask him to elaborate on his idea of the ethno-state. I'm not asking that as any trap. I'm genuinely curious because I've talked to a bunch of alt-righters, and I have gotten almost as many versions of the ethno-state as alt-righters I've talked to. So I'd love to get more of a complete picture on that. And for JF, now, I haven't followed you all that much, so please do tell me if I'm misrepresenting you. You said that genes are interlinked with people's ability to exist in a society. So black people won't be able to achieve the same heights, I guess, as white people in a society. Could you elaborate on that?
I've never said specifically that black people will not be able to achieve what white societies have been doing, but it's probably a certainty if you ask me. Generally, what I say is that yes, genetic characteristics determine factors such as intelligence, such as desire for liberty, such as political preferences, and to that extent, you cannot make some people different through solely cultural change. You cannot reprogram a Middle Eastern Muslim to be believing in anything. There are things that the brain is made to learn, and there are things that the brain is made to forget and not learn.
All right, thank you. That makes it a bit clearer. I do have a contention with it. In Norway, we have a surprisingly good integration system. We've got people from all over the world over here. And during the second generation of immigrants, they are almost entirely comparable to ethnic Norwegians. What do you think about that? How would you explain it, I guess?
Well, I guess we can go into this in detail after the introductory statement. What I will say is it's not impossible if you take such a low number of immigrants that you have the time to make them adhere to your society. There are probably categories of immigrants that are capable of achieving the same thing as the rest. But the situation that you present in Norway, I'm not aware of it. What I will say is that if you look in Canada, the second and third generation immigrants of Muslim family, they remain Muslim. If you look in America, there are measurable differences between black people and white people. So I guess I would have to do some research on Norway specifically. But the overall international image that we have is that if you leave any sort of liberty to a community and you let enough of them migrate, they will differ significantly in their political preference, their religion, the culture in which they are brought in, and the level of identification that they have with the country. We have data for all of these major pillars of human existence.
If I could jump in, it's actually rather fascinating with the case of Hispanics in the United States, and sociologists have been wringing their hands about this. I actually wrote an article about this many years ago. I think it was the first article I ever wrote for American Renaissance back in 2011. And it's actually on downward assimilation. So in the case of Hispanics in the United States, the second generation, again, we're measuring them in the same period of time. We're not measuring them over time. but second generation Hispanics are often worse off, less assimilated than a contemporaneous first generation. And that even continues with third generation Hispanics, who are worse off than first generation immigrants. And the trend actually is a rather distressing one. There is assimilation. It actually seems to be an assimilation towards African American norms. So, again, if we're taking the first bite out of an apple and we get these, 120 IQ Indians or, East Asian doctors or Africans as well, no one would ever question that there's a bell curve in Africa and that there is an elite, a talented 10th among a population of close to 1 billion Africans, that you can find people who will become doctors and lawyers and so on. But looked at in terms of great numbers, and that's what we're dealing with immigration, the story is much more complicated and certainly much more distressing.
Now that we've addressed Ark's specific question, I'd like to comment with a more broad introductory statement, because I do take issue with some of the views that have been defended by V. And I think that the debate of today could revolve around the idea of civic nationalism. To what extent is civic nationalism even possible in some countries? Now, I will tell you, civic nationalism in a country that's all white and they all share the same culture and they all agree on the same values, that's literally the same thing as white nationalism. Civic nationalism in England in the 12th century is not the same thing as civic nationalism in the US right now or in Canada right now. Because of plane travel and because of the ease of immigration, the reality that we're facing right now is that our societies are constituted by an increasing number of people who disagree on ideological ground with some of the foundations of this society. And the reality is that if you adhere to, like V, if you adhere to ideas of civic nationalism and democracy, you are creating a system that is bound through the mere vote of people, not necessarily violence on the street, not even necessarily terrorism, but through the very vote of people in a legitimate democracy. What you end up is that there are people undermining the basis of white civilization right now. It's happening, it's recordable, it's happening at this moment, and it will increase, because once you add a certain number of immigrants in your country, you have enough immigrants, and it doesn't require 50% of your population to be immigrants. All you need is 2 to 10% immigrants of your population to balance the democratic vote toward a more leftist direction. And we have now reached a point where democracy in the US, in Canada, is being heavily influenced by minorities, also by women vote, but in large part by minority. And the fact is, we are losing liberties. We are being driven away from the original liberties that were guaranteed by the US Constitution. And there's no way you can stop this system. Even stopping immigration in Canada, for example, would not be enough to protect Canadian majority to eventually be attained by minorities, including Muslims, Sikh. And what will happen then? What will happen when Canada is a democratic Muslim theocracy in some way? I think that what you will hear from V and Ark today is that they don't have an answer to this problem. And the answer that I give personally, and I don't know if Richard will follow me on this, I say we have to rebuild democracy around new principles. We have to protect white people, white families, the white civilization in general, by protecting it from the democratic invasion that it's currently the victim of.
Well, it's very nice of you to already assume that we don't have any answers. That makes it much easier for us because, we can just give up, can't we?
Okay.
Well, I'd be impressed if you do deploy an answer, but I'll be waiting for it.
All right, let's hear Arch and V respond to that.
Okay, could I go first, V, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, you're into the left of the chat, so let's do it from left to right.
So, from what I understood from that is you wish to protect your demographic as white people, etc., and you feel that you can't do this if the immigration population reaches a certain number. You said from 2%, was that correct?
Well, I said that 2% is enough, for example, in the US to balance a Democratic vote toward the Democrat Party. Of course, once you do that, you have a reinforcing loop because people will vote for parties that accept more immigrants in. In Canada, we're down to much more than 2% minority, and in the US also. What I meant is that 2%, even 2% of immigration would be enough to balance the democratic balance so that you always have parties that welcome more immigrants. Of course, the situation in the US right now is that whites are about to become a minority. So we're way beyond the no return point, if you will.
Okay, that's interesting because we're far over 2% immigrations in my country, Norway. And we actually have had a considerably harsher immigration stance from every single party over the last few years, to the point where our most liberal party, the literal Norwegian Workers' Party, has now decided that we need to not only cut down on immigration, but we need to increase the rate at which we deport illegal immigrants. So I don't think that's a hard and fast rule.
Are you saying that minorities that political parties right now in Norway are advocating for Norway to be a sort of ethno-state by deporting immigrants?
Illegal immigrants is what I said. I did not say immigrants in general.
All right. Well, that I would be totally in line with that policy, but I don't know how this solves the problem of the current U.S. population attaining a white minority within the next few years. I don't know. Maybe we've attained it already. Canadian majority similarly will be eventually dominated by a Muslim population. What do you answer to this? How do we solve this problem?
Okay, we can move on to that, but I take it then you agree that this isn't a fast and hard rule. This isn't an inevitable consequence.
Oh no, I can imagine imaginary worlds in which it doesn't happen, and in which for some reason the country chose its immigrant correctly. But the fact is that we are currently faced with a reality that is observable in Canada, in the US, in France.
Okay,
right.
cool.
I mean, it seems like what you're saying is a bit of an alternative universe in which the Western world is not united in advancing multiculturalism and mass immigration. I mean, that is clearly a macro trend across nations. There are some interesting exceptions, some resistance to this in Hungary or Poland, etc., or perhaps in the Russian Federation. But overall, the overwhelming trend over the past half century in the United States and in Scandinavia in particular has been xenophilia, this absolute multiculti silliness, and so on. Now, I would say an interesting thing that you bring up with this counterexample is the labor parties and actually how they share a lot in common with us. Even Bernie Sanders around 10 years ago was speaking out against guest workers. He was questioning the whole immigration regime. In the 90s, there were actually some people in the United States who were Democrats. The Jordan Commission, I believe her name was Barbara Jordan, this Black female Democrat from Texas, was interested in reducing immigration. So, I mean, all of these things are fine. One can make an economic pro-worker argument in order to limit immigration. I don't think really anyone would disagree with any of that. But again, just the overwhelming reality of this is the direction in which all of these countries in the United States, Western and Central Europe are headed, and also just the demographic reality of the fact that non-white minorities in the United States are going to overwhelmingly vote left. You see this across countries, despite whether they're Hispanic or they're Arab Muslims or they're Africans or African Christians or African Muslims. It's all the same thing. There is a kind of macro left and right that seems to be developing with white cucky conservatives on one side and the people of color coalition and left-wing whites on the other. This just seems to be a obvious trend across the Western world.
So there's many issues that I would like to address here.
Can I just real quickly say one last thing? Then I'll let you.
Okay.
Go on, okay?
Yeah.
I'd like to extrapolate real quick. I am not saying that this isn't a general trend. I am objecting to the absoluteness terms that this is this thing that has to happen and happens everywhere, because that's not the case. That's all I'm saying. But okay, go on, Nabi.
Okay, so there's many points that have been addressed here. First of all, it's like there's the point of no return in America regarding whites. If you're really that concerned, you can open immigration for people from Eastern Europe to come into your country, and then close immigration for people who aren't white, and then you will fix this demographic issue. Secondly, is that democracy is causing this problem. I severely disagree with it. For instance, the European Union has forced nations to take migrants in Europe. The European Union, as Richard Spencer, I'm pretty sure you agree, is not a democratic institution at all. Angela Merkel did not campaign on the fact that she will open borders and she will let many migrants in. The people from Britain, for instance, didn't agree with it, and certainly not the people from Romania who didn't vote for Merkel. In America, you have Obama, who also said that he is against immigration in his first term. Hillary Clinton also said she's against immigration and she wants to build a wall. I have her on a YouTube video where she's saying all these things. And you can say that, okay, democracy is flawed and this is happening, but the EU is not a democratic system, and yet it's happening over there. And I'm pretty sure every single system, regardless of how authoritarian or how undemocratic it is, has its own flaws and can be co-opted by people from the inside. The advantage of a democracy is that once it's co-opted, the people who co-opted still have limited power, and they can't do whatever the hell they want. But when you have an institution like the EU, for instance, when it's get co-opted, the person who managed to get in power is going to have a lot of sway at his disposal, and he's not going to be able to be held accountable by any of the people. So I want to ask Richard about this, right? I don't want to take you out of context or anything like that, but I did hear that you are in favor of the EU and co-opting it from the inside. Were you just shit-talking on the stream? The EU, the European Union. Were you just shit-talking on a stream, or is this something that you still hold?
No, I think it's something I'm very serious about. I've written some articles on this and so on. Yes, I think a more forward-looking ultimate strategy. And again, this is on the vanguard. I would say that plenty of people disagree with me on this. Would be to co-opt the EU structure from the inside and turn it into something for us. Now, you can laugh at that all you want. That is actually how the left operates. They go into institutions, they take them over, and then they achieve their goals. I think it's rather remarkable, the argument you're making. Because you seem to be just hoisting yourself by your own petard. I agree that if immigration were put up to a straight referendum across the Western world, particularly if you put it up to a white people only vote, a referendum, limiting immigration, perhaps limiting it drastically, would be popular overwhelmingly. It would win. I totally agree. Angela Merkel is a mealy-mouthed person. We have to ask the question, why is it therefore happening? And the reason that it is happening is that you can sing all these songs about democracy and the people decide or whatever, but the fact is there are more powerful people than voters. And it seems like the most important issues for the establishment or the deep state or the Davos set or whatever you want to call them are never put up to a vote. Major issues of foreign policy are never even talked about or discussed. The immigration question, the last time there was a real paradigmatic legislative change in the immigration debate was 1965. And that was in a very different world that was presented in mendaciously to a degree. Again, it was chain migration was introduced in the way of, well, all the immigrants now are white. So if it's chain migration, they're bringing in family members, it's going to be more white people. So in the words of Lyndon Baines Johnson, this is not a revolutionary act. And he was actually kind of right in 1965. Certainly by the 90s, when immigration patterns changed dramatically, chain migration just became this bomb that was set off in the United States. It was dramatically changing things. I would also add to this, some of my pro-EU statements, which again, I acknowledge are rather vanguardish, kind of speculative. In some ways, they derive from a critique of this reliance back on the democratic nation state. The fact is, the EU has been bad recently in terms of saying that, all member countries have to accept the immigrants, we've got to spread it around, all that kind of stuff. The EU does not have an external immigration policy. I have said this over and over. The EU has an internal immigration policy. That means that EU policy allows people to travel between member states. That's its essence. It has a refugee policy which says that refugees must remain in the countries of entrance. Now, the refugee crisis in 2015, I think you might agree with me on this, was actually created when Angela Merkel took sovereign responsibility. And she actually used that very turn of phrase, which is very important. She took German sovereign responsibility for the Syrian refugee crisis. Secondly, mass immigration into these countries has been occurring with and without the EU, in spite of the EU, regardless of the EU, for decades. When Enoch Powell gave his justly famous Rivers of Blood speech in 1968, I believe, that was long before the Britain had any relationship with European Economic Community. These policies of mass immigration, of demographic transformation, have been taking place for decades through democratically elected representatives in these nation states. So part of my critique is that it's all well and good to criticize the EU. There are millions of reasons to criticize the EU. But just to think that, we can just go back to our democratic, civic, nationalist nation state and all is going to be well, that's just simply wrong. It is historically wrong. The demographic crisis was created by these nation states. It was created by Britain, it was created by France, it was created by Germany, etc.
And yet we didn't have that many terrorist attacks, and we didn't have this much cultural clash like we have recently. Now, I'm not saying that if we go back to the nation states, everything is going to be peachy, but the reason I'm against the EU is not just because of the policies, but the institution as itself. The problem with the European Union is that you have Europe, which is a bunch of different states with different cultures, and you're trying to force them together. And not only that, the economies in these nations are different. For instance, a doctor in Romania, I believe it's like 5,000 euros, if I'm not mistaken, can complete his entire university studies and then go to Britain and work there as a doctor. While a doctor in Britain, how much pounds does he need to pay? I believe it's over 20,000, if I'm not mistaken, for his studies, right? So sure. The Romanian doctor can work for less. He's willing to work for less because he doesn't have to pay into the system. It's not fair for Britain. It's not fair for Romania because it's losing doctors. And if you look at my country, who's under the EU right now, almost all corporations that are here are not Romanian. I'm paying my water bill for a French company, my electricity bill for a Russian company, so on and so forth. It's damaging to the nations. And the fact that Germany gets to lead the EU, Germany doesn't have Romania's best interest in mind, and nor should it. And the people in Romania can't have much accountability for the European Union Council. This is harmful for a lot of states in Eastern Europe. It's harmful for a lot of states in Southern Europe. The problem with the EU is that Germany doesn't know the interest of the people in Hungary, for instance, because the only people who know the interest of the people in Hungary are Hungarians. And this whole idea of no borders between countries in Europe is just mental. I completely disagree with it. And I think most Europeans would disagree with it as well. Like, what do you think, Arch?
I agree. The EU is a fundamentally undemocratic organization, which is one of the main problems with it. The various nation states that are involved in it have very control over it. And even the nation states that are only tangentially related to it often also have to give up considerable amounts of their freedom. Recently, the EU decided to unilaterally cut into the area of ocean where Norway could fish. This is sovereign territorial waters. We're not even part of the EU, and they decided, no, you can't have that anymore. We're going to take it over. In any other situation, that would quite literally be an act of aggression. The EU is a bad system. It's gotten drunk of its own power, and while I like the theory of a united Europe, it cannot be done in these elitist and frankly totalitarian styles.
Look,
Well, personally,
I would agree with many of these criticisms. These are criticisms regarding federalism, and they're also, and the United States has dealt with all of these things. Before people said the United States is, they actually used to say the United States are. That is, states had a certain much more sovereignty than they do now. And the fact is, we have many different regions in the United States. We have many of these same problems. They might not be quite as acute. I get it. I think all of those are perfectly valid concerns, perfectly valid reasons. Now, why would someone like Richard Spencer say, well, I think there's something good, there's something fundamentally good about the idea of a united Europe? Why would I make this case, knowing that it is, again, it kind of is counter-signally in the alt-right and on the right in general. The reason is it's twofold. It's not so much an issue of federalism. I would be perfectly happy to have federal, dispersed, decentralized federalism within the EU. The question is really two things, or it's actually really one thing. It is foreign policy, and foreign policy is also part of immigration. The Europeans, although we certainly differ greatly, there are major differences between Romania and Greece and Italy and Scotland, etc. We are part of a larger shared civilization, and we are part of a broader extended family that is the white race. My ideal for the EU, which might very well never be achieved, is that it would have a unified immigration policy. That is, that it would protect all member states from the wave of color that is surrounding it, and that it would have a unified foreign policy among the states, in the sense that there are going to be no more brothers' wars. There are going to be no more internecine conflicts between France and Germany and Italy. Now, once those big questions are solved, issues of federalism and internal immigration and economic disparity, that we can work those out in my mind. But those big issues of will the race survive, that big question has to be answered first. So that is the limit to which I will defend the EU. I won't defend the current EU. The current EU is nuts. But I would also mention that it's just as nuts as the member states. I mean, it is controlled by the member states. It's just as nuts as France is and as Germany is right now. So again, to make the EU this boogeyman and think that, oh, well, if only we decentralize power, I just simply don't buy it. And again, we have to undergo a major cultural change, a major change in consciousness for all of these institutions, nation states, federal states like the EU, to work on behalf of our race and civilization.
See,
on my side, on the EU question, I will stand with you guys. The current EU doesn't make sense, and I oppose to it. But that doesn't solve the problem, because it's a problem of, do we label the EU as democratic or not? Just take my opponent's statement and just include the EU or not in that. What I have in mind when I think of how democracy is currently impeding on the white race, I see it in Canada, I see it in the US. So it's clearly not an EU-specific problem. What we have is that there are minorities that are currently using the system of democracy. And I understand, I'm not criticizing the individual. They vote in their interest, but their interests are fundamentally at odds with the concepts of liberty, the concepts of family that white nations have been living by for hundreds of years. And the solution that most people on the alt-right, I believe, propose to that is a viable solution. It is separation, segregation, secession. How do you solve the problem of the fact that in the US right now and in Canada, if we wait enough long time, whites will be a minority. Whites will be living under a regime controlled, yes, democratically, but controlled by people who have religious interests that are fundamentally different than white people. I still haven't heard a solution.
Well, I think I gave the one that you can open immigration for white people from Eastern Europe, if you're worried about white displacement. But before we go into that, I wanted to address Richard Spencer. I understand you have a big heart And I heard the speech before. I don't want to put horseshoe theory or anything, but it's like the idea. It's like, well, it's the human race. We're all a big family, but you're just focusing on the white race, and we're all a big family. And it's like this family has been murdering itself for thousands of years. There have been constant wars in Europe. The things that stop wars in Europe is like things like the nuclear bomb. And now that we don't do actual warfare, we do it with economics and cultural subversion, like you have between Hungary and Germany. You cannot get these races to work together, even though they're the white race. They're different ethnicities with different cultures. Some of them have just came out of communism. Others have been through democracy for through all this time. And the idea that there's just like one big race and it's one big family, I think is something that you maybe hope for, and it has the right feels, but I don't think it has the right facts. If you were to poll the entire European continent and just ask people, it's like, do you think, like, you ask Romanians, do you think Hungarians are your brothers? Do you think Greece are your brothers? They would probably say no. I don't know if you include the Russians in Europe. But if you're, for instance, to dismantle the border between Romania and Russia, that I don't think many people would go for it.
I've recognized most everything that you've said, and I've actually addressed it. I do not deny the power of ethnicity, and just because I recognize that ethnicity is a real thing, that ethnicity can create a friend and enemy distinction within the white race, doesn't mean that the white race somehow doesn't exist or that we don't actually have this shared civilization. There have been times in which we have, as white people, have torn each other apart. The 20th century gives ample evidence for this. You could also look at the wars of religion, in which 40% of Bohemia was slaughtered at one point over, over doctrinal distinctions that we can barely remember, and some other political distinctions as well. The idea that I'm putting forward is an idealism that a shared empire could avoid these internecine battles in the future. Now, maybe these distinctions are too pronounced. I get it. But the fact is, the fact that we're talking right now over the internet using the English language, the fact that we actually have had this, tremendous amount of sharing. The world is starting to break down on racial lines, you could say civilizational lines, and not ethnic or nation state lines. And that is where the world is headed. When a Syrian migrant or an African comes into Europe, and he goes and he enters Budapest, he does not view a Hungarian as a Hungarian. He views him as a white person. When he goes into France, he doesn't look at a French person and say, oh, well, you actually didn't colonize my home country, so therefore I don't have any racial animus against you. It's all good, pal. No, that's not how it works. He views you as white. So therefore, how our enemy defines us is just as important as how we define ourselves. We are white whether we like it or not, is what I'm saying. And we're going to ultimately have to solve this larger geopolitical issue. Now, a lot of people in the alt-right who will counter me, but who do it in good faith, will say things like, well, we can have a military alliance between states. That's fine. I would support that, obviously. But again, a military alliance like that is basically about unifying foreign policy. And at some point, some entity is going to be exceptional. It will hold power. It will have a nuclear weapon, and therefore will have immensely more power. So effectively what they're saying is we're going to have an empire. So again, these are geopolitical realities that are historically moving in a direction, and we need to recognize that and solve them. So again, I didn't actually think we'd be talking about the EU. And again, my position on this is rather complicated. I mean, I'm fine to talk about it. But this is generally how I see the world. I recognize everything you just said. But again, the question is, how are we going to solve these bigger political issues, geopolitical issues? And then also, are we not coming together racially? Which way is the arrow pointing? I get it that Romania is backward, to a large degree. But in terms of white people coming together and seeing themselves in the same boat, clearly that's the direction the arrow is pointing.
We talked about the EU because it's about immigration, and I think it's the cause, the major cause of
that's clearly wrong.
People in Europe.
That's clearly wrong. It's just clearly wrong.
Let's agree to disagree, because if it wasn't for the EU, Romania wouldn't take a single immigrant.
The EU has not admitted a single legal immigrant. It has demanded, I'm just defending the EU on technical grounds. The EU does not have an external immigration policy. I have said this. It is simply a fact.
Let me
blame the EU for Pakistanis in Britain, but that totally did not do that. Britain did that.
Okay, when Romania says we're not going to take immigrants, and then Merkel says you will take immigrants, and then Romania takes immigrants, you can say it's not the EU. But when Hungary says we're not going to take immigrants, and the EU says you will take immigrants or there will be sanctions on other levels, even though it's not allowed. Yeah, but anyway,
I support the resistance of Viktor Orban and others to the EU on this issue. But again, the EU is redistributing refugees. Like, it just is what it is. And the catastrophic immigration that has occurred and not so much in Central European, because they kind of were benefited in this ironic way of being part of the Soviet sphere. But in terms of the Western NATO sphere, all of that immigration was done by the nation states. It just simply was.
When a country like Germany takes millions of people without anyone else in Europe agreeing, and then the EU redistributes them, I think it's the system that's the problem. But anyway, I guess we're not going to see eye to eye on this issue. Arch, you have.
I would also just like to interject that unfortunately the EU does have a common immigration policy for Europe. That is a thing that exists. It has existed since 1999, in fact.
The EU does not bring, you don't apply for citizenship to the EU. These nation states have immigration policies. Indians and Pakistanis did not enter via the EU.
EU-wide immigration and visa rules that will be available all across EU.
And it's not only that. It's like, even if it doesn't have a policy, if a single nation decides, you know what, we're going to allow 5 million refugees in, all of they can travel throughout the European Union after that. Okay, well, if you agree, then you're just dealing with technical and semantics at this point. The point of the
no, I'm not. The fact is, what I would want. The question is, what would we do in power? We can criticize the current EU all day long. It is deserving of criticism. The kind of people running it are just the worst examples of bureaucratic leftist nightmares.
You think it can take over
we should have one unified policy, one unified immigration policy for the entire white sphere. And we would do that through a federal order. So all the things that you complain about the EU are things that in the right powers, that in the right hands, could be used to sustain the entire white race.
Honestly, you look like Smeagol trying to steal the One Ring. But because the thing is, if you can say that,
that's how it works. Who has power? That's the question.
But the thing with democracy is, if you manage to co-opt democracy, you will have very limited power, and you still have responsibility. With the EU, you have almost unlimited power, and you have almost no responsibility. So the thing is, if you think you can co-opt the EU, that's fine. But the problem is that others can also co-opt it back. I just don't want the One Ring to exist.
Same goes with the nation state.
Yes, and the nation state. And the nation state, if it's co-opted, the power is limited. That's my point.
Really? I mean, we all agree that the Western world is in bad shape. I mean,
okay, let me put it this way: Do you want the Clinton presidency or the Clinton monarchy?
I don't know. That's actually a kind of interesting question to think about. Whether this is kind of a Hoppian argument, whether by the actual institution of monarchy, whether that would lead them to more long-term, long-range thinking. The fact is, democratically elected officials enter the political sphere, and for them, the state is something they rent out. So it's like, oh, I'm going to be here 5 years. I'm going to make decisions on the basis of, the next couple months, see how the polls go and all that kind of stuff. I would actually much prefer leaders that are, I hate term limits. I would much prefer leaders that have a very long time horizon. One of the correlations that is important that JF certainly knows about is the connection between intelligence and time horizon, or you could say low time preference. And that is that an intelligent person is going to invest. He's going to develop his skills. He's going to put money away. He's not just going to throw, thousands of dollars at, some stupid party when he could be using that for his education or for house or whatever. And yeah, I think we should actually have leaders that have very long time horizons.
And on the question of time horizons, I will say in immigration policies across the West, there is not a single administrator, politician who talks and thinks about birth rates and about the biological reality over the next 100 and 500 years. That's totally missing from the democratic space. And as far as the point that you guys are currently arguing, I'll say Richard Spencer is an idealist. He believes he could potentially, he suggested that he could overtake the EU and make good with it. All right. It's naive, I find, personally. So I'm not like Richard. I'm more of a separatist, but that's because I'm a Quebecois, and my survival strategy is get north until there's no more people and survive the winter. let everyone populate the south and just get more north. Now, I'm a withdrawn guy and I'm a libertarian. And as was once said, the libertarian always runs away from the communist, but then he creates a society and the communist wants to live in it.
Right.
That's the big problem with segregation and secession. Now, as far as it relates to civic nationalism versus ethno-nationalism, I think we're completely beside the point here, because what Richard would like to do with the EU is not the current EU. We all agree here, the four of us, that the EU in its current state is it's an absolute joke, and we don't even know if we would call it a democracy or a kind of sort of.
I think in any state, in any state it's bad. Yeah, I'd get rid of it.
So in any case, we still haven't found the solution to the problem I posed at the beginning, which is what do you do when a white nation gets overtaken by migrants? Now, V suggested one thing. He said only import white immigrants. Well, first, you'll need enough white immigrants to flute back the situation that you've created, for example, in Canada, which is not clear that it would happen. You need to solve the problem of birth rates, which are higher in Muslim population in Canada. And it's not clear that you could do it in a democracy, because right now in Canada, the only way to win the democratic vote is to appeal to immigrant populations. And how do you do this? By telling them that you will make more immigration of their race or their ethnicity.
Arch, will you take this one or should I?
Yeah, this is actually a question I kind of wanted to go back to. So I think, unfortunately, I do agree. We have gotten, especially in the United States and Canada, luckily, we have managed to salvage it fairly early over here in Norway and Denmark and a few other European countries. But in the case of the US, unfortunately, the US and Canada has a long and hard road ahead of it. I think there is a great temptation to go for quick and easy solutions, which would be, for example, an ethno-state, a full-on, fairly authoritarian my English is falling out, nation, that would do things like encouraging birth rates, for example, about white populations, maybe even deporting people, stuff like that. I think, however, that is fundamentally immoral. I don't like the idea of anybody taking anybody's citizenship away, even if I will agree to the idea that the white race is rice. God damn it, my English. Sorry. Norwegian plus it's late. Even if the white race is threatened, which, I can kind of agree to that in certain circumstances, definitely. There is a anti-white narrative in the media, particularly. You can see that quite obviously. But if we're not going to do that, I think we have to go back to integration. First and foremost, stop immigration entirely, obviously. There's no way around that. And luckily for the Americas, the United States president has the power to do that legally within the current system. He could seize all immigration tomorrow, if he so wished, fully legally. It would have to be challenged by the courts, obviously, blah, 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 but he could do it.
The president couldn't do that unilaterally, to be honest.
Yes, he could actually. It's within his power. to cease immigration from any nation for any span of time for any reason.
Oh, I see what you're saying. A kind of immediate ban, kind of short-term ban. I mean, in terms of a national policy, that would have to be done through Congress.
Yes, but a president could do this as a stopgap measure, and then essentially you'd have to hope to vote in another president that would continue it. Okay. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a currently legal solution.
I see JF shaking his head there.
The judiciary would strike that down. They already struck down Trump's Muslim bans.
They would definitely
weren't really Muslim bans.
But this has been proven to not work. The Trump Muslim ban received so much backlash, and it was not even a complete policy. And this is even more naive than Richard Spencer. I mean, I'm stunned. you just won't do that. The immigrant vote and the minority vote in the U.S. is too powerful. The white vote is not enough at this point. The white nationalist vote is not enough to fight the minority immigrant vote. So you won't do that.
The white nationalist.
Okay, well, you didn't let me finish. First and foremost, that's not a vote thing. That is the president. He has the power to do this.
You're making rather undemocratic. You're making rather undemocratic authoritarian arguments. By the way, not that I'm offended. I mean, to the contrary. But
well, I'm not, because
you're saying like the president in a sneaky and authoritarian fashion will ban immigration. It's like, okay, but you're like, we need more democracy.
It is within his power. In the current democratic system. If it is within the current democratic system and it can be voted out, or as you said, be challenged by the legislation, how is it authoritarian? Are you calling Trump?
Let me make a distinction here. This is a distinction made by Carl Schmitt. Paul Gottfried has talked about this quite a bit. We do need to make distinctions between a state and nation. Those are two fundamentally different things. And we need to make a distinction between legality and, say, parliamentarism, a parliament, and democracy. Democracy is rule by the people, but whether representatives in a parliament are actually acting on the people's behalf is simply not set in stone. Whether something is legal or not does not mean that it's democratic. A democratic actor could act illegally, but do that on behalf of the people, and so on. We need to make distinctions. So that's the distinction I'm making. I think what you were suggesting, which I might even support, to be honest, perhaps to your chagrin, is that the president would act kind of in a sneaky legal fashion, but he would act democratically in a way. He would do what's best for the people. And so I support that. That sounds great. Not exactly, I think, democratic in the way that you were using that word, though.
I don't see it so. I mean, you keep calling it sneaky. I'd say this is blatantly overt. The president has to sign an order to do this. There's no subterfuge involved whatsoever.
The courts can also vote against it, but the only reason they would vote against it if it's discrimination. But if it bans all nations for all immigrants,
this is the checks and balances of the US. It's exactly like it's supposed to function.
Exactly. There would be no legal reason to say that the president's vote is unconstitutional, because the previous reason was that he's discriminating, and if you would ban immigration from all the nations, then there is no discrimination to be made.
Yeah.
Right. And finally, I'll just finish up because I'm almost done. Then you can continue. Thank you. And then you'd have to go through the process of immigration, which would be long. It would be painful. It would probably, honestly, take centuries, but it would allow us to continue our current system, because integration has been shown to work in countries like Norway, but it needs to be done slow. It's very expensive, and it needs to be done within the limits of the nation, which in the case of the US, well, you've blown past those limits ages ago. We can all agree on that. Right, I'm done.
Could you repeat that last phrase? I'm sorry. You said that in the US, we've blown past those limitations. In what way?
Yes. So when you need to integrate new citizens, it costs a lot of money, costs a lot of training, a lot of special competence, etc. It's a very complicated process. And a nation can only do this so many times because it's that expensive. Not even just in money, but think about all the teachers you need to teach the new immigrants to speak proper English, for example. There's a hard cap on how many immigrants a country can take. And since you've already taken too many and need to start integrating the current population, that is probably going to be a very slow process.
I see what you're saying.
So Andy, I'm just stunned right now. We have the two liberalists essentially advocating for making out of America a no-immigration ethno-state to fix the problem of the white race through authoritarian use of the president's power. I think we're done here.
That is a
you
massive
win.
misrepresentation
I
of
give
our
up.
position.
Yeah,
To a downright
I've
hilarious
given up.
degree.
Arch and V, what do you think?
I don't think it's authoritarian. You would have to prove that it's authoritarian, Jeff.
If
'cause
this
you
is
have the
authoritarian-
courts that can also say that no, it's unconstitutional. If something is constitutional, if it doesn't violate the rights of a single person, like tell me whose rights are being violated by this, what you call authoritarian? The president can be impeached, right? The courts can say that no, the president doesn't have a right to do so, but it is still democratic, right? People don't have a right to come into another person's nation. It's a privilege. It's not a right.
You make these
I
semantic
feel like
categories in your brain, V. That's beautiful. Because if someone who's named the president and who was elected by democracy makes an authoritarian decision, that is one that impedes on the individual rights of people, you don't call it authoritarian because it emerged from the process
Whose rights
of
is it
democracy.
impeaching, though?
Some of the rights would be impeded. First, the rights of immigrants to due process. Secondly, the rights of people who are already in the US but are not
that
done
is not
through the
correct.
immigration process. And let me finish my list. The right of the people of the nation, like the minorities, the black people, the Hispanics, to have an immigrant policy that they voted for, which is to get people like them into the country. This is what the minorities of Canada and US currently are voting for. And so if you don't make this action through the process of democracy that you elected your president for, then you are somehow deceiving them. You can call it deception, you can call it authoritarianism.
Can you prove that the minorities who voted for Trump voted for more immigration of their kind by electing the President Trump in the United States?
I can show you data from
Minorities
Canada that is undoubtedly.
We're
the
talking
case.
about the US. I don't know the situation in Canada. I think they elected.
Here, I posted an article from the Globe and Mail showing that Canadian families, Sikh, Muslim, Canadian families.
but
from
we're talking
immigrant
about the
population
US,
vote
right?
specifically for people of their race to be immigrating.
Okay, fair
to
enough.
Canada.
But we're talking about the United States. Did the minorities who vote for Trump voted to have more immigration? A president that's constantly talking about how he wants to limit immigration? Like
Minorities
V,
voted for the Democrat Party.
V, less than 10% of African American voters voted for Trump, and you can look at very similar statistics for Hispanics. It's maybe a quarter of them vote Republican, and so on. And I mean, Trump has bad approval ratings. He's bumping up almost to 50 now, but it's still not good for a first term.
So even
if you judge that on white people, he would have a perfectly fine approval rating.
Okay,
so I mean,
first of all, there was the statement, the white nationalist vote. The white nationalists can't elect a single person into office, so I don't think the white nationalist vote matters. But secondly, the minorities, JF, minorities apparently didn't vote for Trump, so they lost. And now, according to democracy, they have to, obey whatever the president that the majority elected. It's how, as long as he's constitutional and as long as he's not hurting their rights. This is how democracy functions. I don't know why you're smiling, but if I have to explain the cornerstones of how, why democracies have functioned throughout the years, then maybe this is why I disrespect them so much. Right?
It's a childish understanding of the process of politics in the US. That's why I'm smiling.
Okay, the point was that people who didn't vote for Trump are going to have to follow whatever immigration plan Trump has set out. And the people who are like the 10% of minorities who voted for Trump, I don't think they voted to have more immigrants in. Therefore, I don't think that Trump saying that we're going to have no more immigration is going to be an authoritarian measure. But what do you think about this, Arch?
I'll go through the list. One, we are suggesting an ethno state. We are not. It would have the exact same ethnic state that the US has right now. You would just start integrating them. We're not suggesting you're going to be doing anything to them, other than making them proper citizens, like we've done here in Norway. It asked for it, it would be authoritarian. No, this exists within the current system of checks and balances of the US government. If this action is authoritarian, then the US government has unfortunately been authoritarian for a very, very long time. And finally, due process. This in no way infringes on any citizen's due process. Somebody who is guilty of illegal entry will be put through the judicial system as usual, maybe penalized by up to 6 months in prison and possibly deportation. Or if he is guilty of illegal presence, that is still a civil suit. None of this impacts on anybody's rights. Could you mention a single right in the US that is impacted by this?
We're not really arguing on behalf of people's rights, to be honest. I mean,
well, I am.
First off, I find it
important.
I find it rather remarkable that you are arguing for Scandinavia as this wonderful example of integration.
Not Scandinavia, Norway.
Just Norway. Okay. It's a
yes, I have never mentioned any country but Norway. America, obviously.
Okay. Norwegian exceptionalism, I guess. Norway is and has been certainly an ethno-state in a bit of a different way than my idealized form, but it's been an ethno-state, and then it's had a ethnic population connected to a parliamentary order and so on. It's been a very productive welfare society for many decades. In small numbers, it doesn't surprise me that these minorities won't be a terrible problem. But the fact is, you have to look at the United States in terms of what really happens when a polity is divided by race. African Americans have been on this continent far longer than my immediate ancestors who came in the 19th century. Actually, to the United States, some of them came a little bit earlier. Many Africans have been here centuries longer, since the 16th and so on centuries. They have never been fully integrated, and we have spent trillions of dollars attempting this massive feat of civic nationalism, and it has abjectly failed in all measures. We have foregone going back to the moon or exploring space in order to integrate American society in various means. It's all been tried: forced busing, integration, diversity stuff, and so on. And the same is certainly holding for Hispanics. The same is obviously going to hold for Muslims, who add this new religious element to the racial element, which is already there. I just, this idea that what you're saying, I mean, you've even admitted it yourself. We are going to spend, this is going to take centuries, actually, in your own words. But we're going to do it just so we don't, we don't have that moral stain on us about violating someone's right. Okay. But we're going.
That is entirely correct.
Absolutely not going to work. And the other thing is that the dynamic of the population, as of, and I'm talking about the United States, which again is a kind of cauldron for understanding multiculturalism and mass immigration, much more than Europe. As a quick aside, a lot of people at CPAC, which is going on right now, and a lot of American conservatives, they'll look at Europe and they think it's just a big, fiery rape fest or something, Sweden now it's a bloodbath and all this kind of stuff. The fact is, Europe is certainly better off demographically than the United States, despite the Muslim element. I mean, the United States is a cauldron. It's a crucible for understanding mass immigration and racial divisions. As of June of 2011, the majority of births in the United States were to non-whites. And that means that if we were to shut off immigration, as you guys have admirably suggested, if we were to shut that off tomorrow morning, whites would still become a minority in the United States. It would be a little bit after 2050, 2060 maybe, but who cares? In terms of historical time, that's a blink of the eye. It doesn't matter. And the society would change even then. And the fact is, I don't, and I think I speak for JF as well, the way we think, we don't really think in terms of my individual rights. I mean, Richard Spencer, I'm fine. I could kind of negotiate multi-culti society and go eat at great restaurants and, you know, go watch the latest Marvel film about
Europe.
the glories of Africa. About what did you say?
Yeah, we got banned from Europe. I don't. It's like you
I got
say
banned
that
from Europe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
let me finish the point. Okay. I thought you had a funny joke, but unfortunately.
But it is funny.
So I could live through this if I were simply concerned with myself and maybe my immediate family. I could easily survive this. But JF and I think over the long term, we think in terms of a line. We want to preserve our extended family, our genetic line, and our civilization that grows out of it. And so we are making long-term decisions. And the fact is, if you look back at history, it is a slaughter bench. Let's just be honest about it. And we are not out of history. We haven't passed some Rubicon where, you know, none of these things apply. The fact is, historical actors and states have violated people's rights. They've kept people out. They've made tough, sometimes terrible decisions in order to maintain their order. And we're willing to do that. Because that's what being an adult is. You can accuse me of being naive and idealistic. Actually, I'll take those criticisms. Those are fine. But adults ultimately are willing to make responsibilities. Right now, the American population and the elite classes and so on, they are willing to make choices about life and death.
All right.
They are willing to make choices about war and peace. And so should we.
Let V respond now. V.
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask for this so I can keep the responses short because
on
a tangent.
I know I was going to interrupt anyway. So don't worry.
So I understand that Spencer cares about the white people a lot, and the idea that I'm against going after the Andrew Anglin plan, I guess, to zap minorities and drag them away from the country or what have you, is that I also identify as a citizen, and being a citizen of a country gives me concrete rights that I have over other people, like the right to vote, for instance, the right to seek asylum in another nation, the right to have a function of government in my country, so on and so forth. For me, being a citizen is incredibly important. And when you attack that identity, you go after another citizen, despite of his racial color or whatever, and you're going to say, okay, you're not a citizen anymore. You just gave the government the power to do this. I have no guarantee that the government you created will then not use the power that you just given it in order to go after me. The idea of uncitizening someone who has a single nationality is something that the international community as a whole is against. Uncitizening people can lead to the situation in that movie, The Terminal, with the guy stuck, right? They can't even travel. They have no nation that they belong to. And I personally view my own rights as being threatened the moment you go after one of my own citizens. The only way you could deport someone if they have a dual citizenship, that's fine. But when you talk about these things, as I say, it goes against my identity. And also when the far left goes like, we're going to bring millions of immigrants in and make them citizens, it also goes against my citizenship identity, because now my vote is watered down. Now when I vote for someone, it's a million times less effective than it was before. And this is why I oppose the far left. And this is why, even though I agree with the problems that you're using, I can't go with the solution of uncitizening someone.
So, guys, I'd like to address a few points that were made for the last 30 minutes. First, Ark says, I'm against authoritarian governments. And I will point out, I'm also against authoritarian governments. To me, the ethno-state does not rely necessarily on an authoritarian intervention. It can rely on a free decision by libertarian-minded people to form a society democratically. And there are global UN provisions for peacefully separating from a federal state, and that's what personally I see for white America, that it could take maybe 4 or 5 states, the way Alternative Hypothesis explains it. If white people that are minded like the alt-right were to get together, get to those states and populate them freely, they could eventually segregate from the federal government. And I personally don't see any uncitizenship, any removal of citizenship being necessary. I don't mind if in the white ethno-state there is a remaining 5% minority. I'm totally open to that. Now to the question of Richard, who said, I think I'm like JF and I don't care that much about individual rights. It was true for the context of the discussion, because ARC and V are presenting a case where the president would sign some sort of order unilaterally to stop immigration. I agree that this is not a question of right. However, as far as the ethno-state goes and as far as white nations go, I believe that one fundamental aspect of white society is freedom, as protected by a very strong constitution. So I'm not against democracy overall. I think there are possible democracies in which the liberty of white people could be preserved, but it will need a very strong constitution, one that is outputted by intelligent people after learning from the errors that we've made, just like we've made in the US currently. There are violations of the current constitution every day in family courts and civil courts and criminal courts, and we can learn from this and make better. As far as my original question goes, so the idea that what is the solution to the extinction of the white race in some countries that used to be white? What ARC is saying is a presidential order that will stop immigration for 5 years. What happens after 5 years, ARC? Because this president will be kicked out by the democratic force of minorities. They will not be happy with that. They will replace him with Hillary Clinton, and she will just say, yeah, we're going to take 100,000 more immigrants next year. So this is not a long-term solution for the white race.
In which case, unfortunately, you do not have the democratic vote to implement the system within the current nation. However, I would like a clarification. So you say that you could create a new state. I'm assuming you're meaning a full new nation, as in, new flag, new anthem, etc.
Absolutely.
Okay,
a new state. A nation is something different. A nation is a people. I don't want to be autistic about it, but you understand.
Okay.
A new state to govern.
I'll just try to clarify. State. So yeah, it would be a separate government. It would not be under the remit of the United States of America. So it'd be a completely separate entity.
Yeah, I think that the United States can fragment into a number of sub-entities, and that could be a direction taken within the next 100 years. And that might be a direction. I often make the joke, white nationalists may be too cocked to do it, and maybe black nationalism will be the driving force to do it first. Just like I'm a Quebecois separatist, but when I was young, I was really hoping that Alberta would separate from Canada, because I thought if the English can show us the strength to do it, maybe we'll find the energy to do it ourselves after. I think the same situation could happen with white nationalism, or white nationalists could be strong enough of a movement to undertake the secession from the US.
Well, I actually don't have a problem with that. If you can gather enough people, get the United States government to agree to give you a piece of land, etc., and you can do all of that, I applaud it. Go on, do it.
All right, I want to ask a question here. And by the way, we're at number 4 trending worldwide. That's freaking awesome. And everyone hit like if you're enjoying this. I quite am. This is very, very interesting, very different. But one question I want to ask all of you. When I was watching Andrew Anglin on Baked Alaska stream. Now, first of all, Richard, I want to clarify your point. When I asked you this before when you were on the show, you said if you're going to pick a state like Florida, for example, you wouldn't want to use violence to remove non-whites. Is that correct? Like you'd pay them to leave, or?
Oh yeah, with a re-immigration policy, which could be done through the United States, or it could be done in a futuristic ethno-state, so on. Yeah, the obviously illegals have to go first. That's the easy one, and then I would be certainly willing to pay people large sums to give up their citizenship through the government. So that would not violate anyone's rights, according to Arch and V. I would actually even be willing to create places for them if we need to. Sending blacks back to Africa seems a bit much, but creating a kind of ethno-state of their own, I would certainly be willing to do something like that.
All right,
and that would be the first thing.
How will you have all the money as?
Hang on, just 1 second.
We won't invade Iraq. We would have $3 trillion right there.
Yeah, I just want your thoughts on this, actually, on Andrew's idea. He goes a step further. Most people that I've talked to about starting a white ethno state have your idea in mind. Now, when I heard Andrew, he was talking about, forcibly removing people using tasers in his word. I mean, his words. So, what are your thoughts on people who take it a step further than your solution?
Well, I mean, again, we're kind of dealing in these hypotheticals of where we're going to be. I think the ethno state, it is utopian in a way, but it will be necessary because of the catastrophic breakdown occurring within the United States. With some kind of crisis, a new paradigm will come in. I don't think this will probably happen incrementally. I think it will actually happen as a solution to a crisis. So again, talking about means or what have you, this is all hypothetical. But I would say this: the survival of the white race is non-negotiable. So effectively, there's nothing that I wouldn't do in order to ensure the survival of my people.
All right. So hypothetically, if it came down to it, you would join Andrew's
taser
plan?
army.
Taser army. Yeah.
it's just tasers. It's like ouch.
I
guess there's a better way to frame the question, because I agree with you. In a situation of self-defense, and if your people is threatened and your existence is threatened, there is no shame in using violence to defend yourself. But I guess one question that people ask, and I'm not sure of what's your answer to that: would you initiate violence in the current state of American society?
No, not in the current state of American society, no. And I don't think that would fly as well. I mean, what I'm saying about the ethno state, this is something not for tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. And it is going to come as the answer to the crisis that is being created by the multicultural democratic order that we have right now, which is in crisis. We just don't quite see it yet, although we do say it. I think things like the opioid epidemic, the cultural despair and suicide, the just insane levels of indebtedness, just the degeneration of our culture, these are all expressions of a great crisis that is to come.
Actually, I have a question.
Sure,
Richard. So I know we're talking in hypotheticals here. However, what is when you picture that point where you're like, okay, we've passed that line where white people are now in dire crisis. What do you picture in your mind that you would go to a more extreme measure when you would be like, all right, enough is enough? Like how much percentage of white people in America, or if you see something happen in the political sphere, for example, like a new law set in, what would be the point where you're like, enough is enough, time to do like something?
I think the paradigms will last until they don't. And the current paradigm that we are living in now, that has 20 trillion in national debt and hundreds, maybe even millions of trillions of total debt, including derivatives and all this, this is all nuts, but it is still going on. And there is not an immediate crisis. People are fed. There is not internal war. There are signs of degeneration and decay, but we are not in a crisis right now. So how an ethno state would arise, I can't answer. And that's not my dodging of the question, because the thing is, this isn't theoretical. It's philosophical, but it's not purely abstract. It's an historical question. But a ethnically bound order will be the answer to the crisis. That crisis might not occur in my lifetime. I think it might very well, actually. I think these things can change really quickly, and things change hyperbolically as well. No one was predicting the French Revolution, or what was that? No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. Yeah. No one was predicting these tremendous changes that can occur over the course of a few years. George Washington fought on behalf of the British Empire before he engaged in revolutionary action against it. So, I mean, the history can change. And again, what I'm saying is the world we're living in now, this is the paradigm that is leading to violence. I have no question that this order that we've created, and America being the fullest expression of it, is going to end in blood and tears. It is not going to end in integration and happiness. It is not going to end well. That is something I'm sure about. And I'm trying to think of a solution. And very oftentimes when people put forward solutions, for problems that aren't here yet, they're laughed at, they're idealists, they're radicals, they're crazy, whatever. But, I am looking ahead. I'm not just thinking about how we can twist a knob on the current system in order to maintain it a few years. I saw someone put something forward of Rush Limbaugh was saying, we'll amnesty all illegals, but they can't vote for 10 years. So it's like he wants to be safely ensconced in a retirement community by the time that the chickens come home to roost. And I really hate that kind of nonsense. We need to care about what happens 100 years from now to our grandchildren.
All right, so Arch and V, then I ask you the question. So you're hearing what Richard is saying right now. He's not concerned of the right now, but thinks that something must be done for the future. So what do you think about his plight of what will happen in the future?
I think I can summarize it really easily, honestly. Like, I've given a solution that it would be hard, it would require a lot of time, a lot of money, it would be complicated as hell, and it would require some steps I would not be fond of. But on the other hand, Richard Spencer's solution is by his own admission, utopian, but also requires some massive crises. It seems to me that mine is the most realistic, and as a bonus, it won't require a civil war.
The crisis is coming. It will come to yours as well. I mean, there's going to be a paradigm change.
Will breathe on our doors, knock them down, steal our children.
But Arch, I think
might happen.
He's saying,
it might happen.
While there is no crisis at the moment, there is, the anti-white narrative and other things like that, immigration, birth rates, etc. I think what he's talking about is not the crisis at the moment, but if we don't do something now, then perhaps in 40 years, 100 years, there will be a crisis, and it'll be way too far into what has been happening to go back.
Well, I would really just say, like the communists say, the revolution is coming. The crisis is always coming, it seems. I mean, this has been the thing throughout human civilization. There is always an enemy to justify doing what we have to do now. We have to take firm, drastic measures now because it'll be too late afterwards. We need Lebensraum now. I mean, this has been used to justify every single overstep in human civilization.
I think that your metaphor with communism is beside the track, because Richard Spencer is not saying we have to hope for the crisis to happen as fast as possible, or this will be a necessary tool. He's looking at current society. We're looking at current society. And let me ask you, Ark, do you consider that the current level of debts in socialist countries, semi-socialist countries like Canada, or even in the US, do you think that this is a maintainable system?
Depends. I mean, what is the crisis you are envisioning? An economic crisis, a civil war?
Here's the situation of Canada. Debt is growing constantly. Even if you just put the money on the interest, debt keeps growing because people are draining money from the government through their vote, through their democratic vote. Then you have parts of the population who are putting more strain on that system by welcoming more immigrants. So they vote for parties that will welcome more immigrants. Why? Because they want these other immigrants to vote just like them so they can keep drawing more money from the government. And at this point, the private sector in Canada is struggling, and some parts of it is struggling because it's paying a lot of tax. Some other part of it is actually benefiting from the largest of the federal government because the federal government controls the economy in a way that, will make law ABC that will advantage corporation ABC, and then we'll make another law that will disadvantage corporation EDF. So there's no more place for the natural progress of white societies the way they were doing in a naturally capitalistic society. That's the current system, and it's a system that doesn't seem like there's an out from it other than a crisis. So to say it's a factual observation that this system is not tenable, and you seem to be having problem admitting it, but you're also not denying it. So I'll take your lack of an answer as an admission that it's not sustainable. This system will crash. From there, what we can say is let's create a sense of identity around who we are, so that when that happens, we'll know where to be headed.
Well, again, it's very good of you to assume my position for me. It saves me a lot of time, but nevertheless, I must disappoint you. We have a crisis, like you said. Okay, sure. Let's try and figure out that crisis then, instead of going, okay, well, everything's fucked. The world's going to collapse. For example, in Britain, they were running straight towards a massive economic crash. They had to take a large number of very severe steps to halt it, and currently, the British economy is slowly regaining its footing. One of these was a...
fix your
So
microphone?
the admission that I attributed to you, you
Hold
just
on,
confirmed it. You said there will be a crisis. You just believe, and you don't.
Yeah,
I
hang
just
on.
said, let's assume there is a problem. Let's solve that.
Hang on. Sorry, one
before
second.
going
One
to
second.
crisis.
Not about the debate at all, but yeah, V, you're hearing that too, like the robotic.
Let's wait for Arch to fix his mic.
Yeah, Arch. I think if you just jump out of the call and then hit the link, it
I
should.
will just answer Ark, and then we'll pass the mic to V. Ark,
Sure.
the admission that I attributed to you, you just admitted it. There will be a crisis in your view, and you have no argument against this. The system that's currently operating in countries like Canada is not sustainable. Now, as far as the solutions that ARC proposed, they are all based on belief. They are like, let's settle together and find a solution. Well, that's also what we're trying to do, find a solution. And I think that racial segregation might be one solution, at least for the white people, to recover some of the characteristics of the societies that they had built. Go ahead, V.
Well, I think Arch was
fix
going
my
to
mic.
talk and you interrupted him. So let's hear what he wanted to say.
Is the mic better now, or
Well, I don't know. You have to talk a little.
Hang on. Talk for a
Okay.
second.
is it squiggling?
No, now it sounds pretty
Now it's
decent.
better.
I'll let you know if it's messed up.
Yes, please do. Thank you. Right. I don't know if you're having trouble hearing me because I was crackling or whatever, but I just said, okay, let's assume there is a problem. Let's just solve that problem instead of going, okay, the problem is going to inevitably implode our universe, and so we need to take the next drastical step, the final solution, if you will. I'd rather just fix the economy.
I don't advocate for any drastical step. I'm saying the
Really?
current system, I don't have the force to convince immigrants not to vote for pro-immigration parties. So Canada is down a
I
path
just
where
have to
it's going to
interrupt.
be a
The
reinforcing
splintering
loop
of
of
the
immigration
US
for the next
Is
100
not
years.
a drastic solution?
What?
Can you repeat?
Splintering of the US is not a drastic solution?
Hey, Arch, your mic still. Did you jump out of the call
God.
and jump back in?
I did. I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Do you have another mic?
Yeah, I mean, as
Sorry,
far
guys,
as
that
maybe I can answer him when he's back, and we can move to V while he's gone, because I want
Sure.
him to hear my answer.
Not a problem, man.
Also, I'll just add real quickly. I think this crisis will be total. Actually, I think this isn't just a matter of we need to get rid of some of that national debt or something. This is going to be a totalizing crisis, and there's a interwebbing, you could say, of race and immigration and indebtedness, of degeneracy and cultural despondency and despair. I mean, this is all connected. And yeah, I unquestionably think there's going to be a huge crisis, and I don't think that the current system is going to be able to solve it. It's going to be a crisis for it. The fact is, paradigms do change. No one, I mean, the greatest minds in the State Department were not predicting the collapse of the Soviet Union. before the First World War. There are all these collection of books about how war has now become impossible, and the whole world is going to be integrated financially. If you had told Winston Churchill before the Second World War, which he avidly advocated for, that Britain would end up the victor, but it would end up as a third-rate power with massive indebtedness, they'd throw away the British Empire within a generation, he never would have believed you. Before Britain's previous centuries, the idea that the sterling would no longer be the global reserve currency. Paradigms change. People currently benefiting from the paradigm don't see the crisis coming, and they don't have an answer for it because, again, their basis of legitimacy is based on the system. Now, this being said,
sorry, just was it Arch? Is your mic all right?
Oh, okay.
Testing 1 2 3.
All right, I think that's the best we'll get. Sorry,
and I'm not like a wild dreamer, Cassandra man out in the wilderness screaming. I think that there are no question things that can be done right now that would benefit white people, they benefit black people, they benefit Hispanics. Like, ending these absolutely stupid wars in the Middle East right now, that would be great. Reducing immigration pretty drastically, even doing Trump's plan. That would be great. I would support it. So I've got 1 foot planted on the ground, my head's in the clouds, whatever. But there are many things that can be done that would help people really go, I don't know how to solve it, but really going after the opioid crisis, that would help people right now. We should do those things. But all I'm saying is what's missing from the debate and what's really missing from so-called conservatism is this long-term view, this outlook towards the future.
The way I view it, you kind of need this crisis for your ideology to make sense. So when you say these silly wars in the Middle East, you kind of don't understand the purpose of them. The purpose is to keep the petrodollar and to keep American dominance in the Middle East. Because if the Russians were, for instance, going to take over that would be bad for America. And I probably see that you would like it because it would create the crisis. But anyway, Arch is here, so he had to answer JF.
Wait, hang on.
Start with a few strawmen that Richard can answer.
Yeah, let's have Richard respond to that statement.
Well, okay, you said these senseless wars in the Middle East. Care to elaborate why you think they're senseless?
I think they don't actually support Americans. I think they're totally awful wars. I agree with you that the petrodollar, or the U.S. world reserve currency, which has lasted since 1944, is of tremendous importance, undergirding this entire system. And just having boots on the ground in the Middle East is undergirding. And I get that. I mean, I've been talking about this for a long time. That you don't necessarily have to have read everything I've talked about, but I agree with all those things. I think you're just picking up on something. But no, my ideology of identitarianism does not rely on a crisis. I would say this: whether the ethno-state would come about, sure, it's a new paradigm, no question. But identitarianism as a political philosophy, no question, does not rely on any kind of terrible crisis. Actually, I think in a way, almost to the opposite. I think in living in the world of milk and honey, living in the suburban world of too much credit and TV and Netflix and chill or so on, I think actually people are really questing after something more. In a very authentic way.
You can't hold both positions in your head, saying that
I just explained to you. The ethno-state is not identitarianism.
Let me clarify. Let
me clarify, right? The idea that the wars are senseless, and at the same time that it's important for the petrodollar. Are the wars senseless, or is the petrodollar important? Because you can't separate one from the other.
Sure, great. I'll grant you that point. I agree that there is a kind of logic. Now, there's a tremendous amount of waste to all of this. There are plenty of that, like the Libya and all this kind of stuff. There's a tremendous amount of waste and nonsense. But sure, it's all part of like a bigger hegemonic logic to the American empire. I'll grant you that, sure.
All right, now
when I say senseless wars, it's kind of a throwaway line. This is not what we're arguing about. I basically just don't like a lot of these.
Yeah. Anyway, Arch, your mic is okay now?
Yeah, so Arch, before he left, he asked me, JF, isn't the separation of states a radical solution? Maybe it's my cultural upbringing. I'm a Quebecois. I've been brought up in the independence movement of Quebec, but voting for the existence of a people and claiming that a people exist is not a radical claim. The only thing that's radical right now is to see a life form deny its own existence and become slowly one of the most repressed minority in current times, white heterosexual males. That's radical. There's nothing radical in saying we have a spot of land, it's ours, and it exists for the reproduction of ourselves and our descendants.
All right, is my mic functioning anymore?
Oof, that is even worse. Hang on, Arch, are you using a USB mic or an XLR?
I'm using a USB now. I tried the XLR and that was worse.
Now it's decent. Now it's decent. Yeah.
I'm really sorry. This
no, man. I know how that is. No worries, buddy. Go ahead.
All right. So okay, cool. I understand your point of view, but what I'm saying is splintering the United States of America in any fashion would be, oh my God, it would change world politics. It would turn the world on its head. I mean, the US is, for better or worse, the world hegemon right now, and it's suddenly splintering apart. Oh my God, I can't even begin to imagine the consequences.
Well, I'm
going to be terrible
for your feelings.
I mean, I think we all agree. I mean,
sorry. Fuck me.
Say facts don't care about your feelings, or
no? It's just like the U.S.
geopolitics
don't my feelings. And
geopolitical reality doesn't care about your feelings. Obviously, I think we all agree. None of us here are totally naive, cucks who think like, oh, America's just we're just a little nation state over here in the corner. We just want our own sovereignty. No, of course, the United States is a global empire. It undergirds a global system. There are a few powers that are questioning that, but they are second rate. Russia is one. It questions it militarily and geopolitically and so on. China, less so militarily, but certainly economically. So there are some rivals, but no question, we live in a unipolar American imperial world. No question. But all of these paradigms change. I mean, this is my point just about 10 or 15 minutes ago. Every time you think that you've reached the end of history and that nothing else can happen, this is it. Any kind of these radicals over there, that what they're suggesting is impossible. No, its own internal contradictions lead to its collapse, and a new order arises out of it. And look, I have an idealistic vision for what could come after the American imperial order. The fact is, I'm not the only one. There are Muslims out there who also they have a vision. Let's to put it charitably, they have a vision for how they want the world to look after the great and little Satan, go off or put out to pasture. They have a vision. I don't want to live under that. I actually think the Chinese have a vision which might be more palatable, but it's certainly not a world I want to live in. I'm not actually so sure that Russians have they are a rival to the United States. I'm not sure they actually have a vision for the world order. Maybe they do. But the fact is, we are going to have to think now about what comes afterwards. And, it's all well and good just to think in terms of individual rights and so on. I want my rights as a citizen respected. Someone aggresses against me, I want them prosecuted. I totally get that. But, geopolitics, all that, it doesn't care about your feelings, and it doesn't really even care about your rights. These geopolitical questions like this, and ultimately political questions of who's sovereign, who controls the territory, and so on. These are questions of power, and we have to think of them in those terms. It's not always comforting to think about brute force, but we have to.
I will also point out that not thinking about these questions in terms of power is a form of denial of truth. Because the current American system is a system of violence. It is a system that has some characteristics that impedes on the rights of some people. The current American hegemony to some people in the planet is absolutely disgusting. And so when you talk about changes in these states, let's not forget that the current state exists in violation of rights of many people. Think of a Native American, for example. Our existence as white people in North America exists as a competing life form to Native Americans, and
right.
we destroy most of their environment. Yes,
yeah.
we
Sorry,
did.
let's have Arch and V jump in there.
I'll leave it to V. All I'd like to say is I don't know where this became about feelings. Like the original point was, don't you think
well, you said,
the splintering of the US is a drastic thing? And you're like, it doesn't care about your feelings. What the hell does this have to do with
I also like to say,
let me re-summarize for Ark here, and then V can come. You said it's a drastic solution. I said no. People existing is not a drastic solution. People saying we want to take control of our own destiny. People saying we want to take control of our own destiny is not drastic at all.
No, but the splintering of the world hegemon is...
Oh my God, can you imagine the effect on the world? And then Jeff, I said...
Jeff, just
these kinds of things happen all the time throughout history.
Arch respond to that.
Ridiculous consequences.
Yeah. It's bad. Yeah, sure. History's a
Jesus Christ. That's fine. No, that's fine. That's all I wanted to hear. It's bad. Cool. I'm fine now. Go on.
All right. I would like to call this the alt-right, the idea of the imminent crisis that's always going to come. And the fact that you said it's all about the feelings, I mean, it's a fucking radical change to the entire world order. And any moron who knows a little bit about geography can point it out. Yeah, if the world hegemon splinters, other hegemons will take over. It's a matter of fact. It's human nature. It's like politics. Right. All right.
Thanks for arguing my
point. So when you're saying that, okay, let's worry about the white person and whatnot. Okay, I would be worried if another foreign power would then invade over me because I'm in these small splinters sections that other powers can dominate both militaristically, both culturally, both economically. They can subvert other smaller states against me. They can use past historical grievances against me. And also, I'm curious, JF, what is your solution for the banking problem right now? Because there's a lot of people, right, especially in the chat, who are believing that whites are in danger right now, that in 5 years they're going to be replaced, and they need a solution right this very moment, not when the crisis is coming, right? What is the alt-right solution for the imminent white genocide that's going on?
Well, if you strawman the speakers on a Hangout, I would not doubt that you also strawman people on the chat. I've never seen anyone claim that in 5 years the white race would disappear. However, it's a very realistic scenario to think that it could become a minority in almost all of its countries within the next 500 years. And because it will happen in a way that is non-returnable, where there is a point of non-return, we have to think about it right now, yes. But that's because sometimes you make democratic decisions that will result in unstoppable phenomena for the next 500 years, such as letting an immigration wave into your country that has higher birth rate than you. Now, people don't think about that. We should start thinking about that because birth rate is everything over evolutionary time.
So let me clarify. If I said that I'm strawmanning, there was an article that was being spread around saying that whites are going to become a minority in the US in 5 years. But there are certain
That's wrong.
Yeah, it is wrong. Now, if your ideology is for the next 500 years, that when the crisis is going to happen and we're going to have to worry about it then, I mean, that's fine.
You're
more
against
power
strawmanning. Richard has already answered to that point. So no, because you tend to make a little passive-aggressive point, and then you move on to another question. You know what I'm going to do, V? I'm going to address each and every one of your points. So don't start with these passive-aggressive comments, or it's going to take 3 hours. Richard has already answered to you. In identitarianism, there are solutions for the current world. There are practicalities that can improve the world right now. You make it about the crisis. We've simply observed that within the next 500 years, it's very unlikely that the financial systems and governmental systems of Canada and the US will remain unchanged. That's all we're saying. And once we're there, we'd like to know where we're headed, or at least have prepared the minds to be thinking of who they are and what they want for the future.
So if I'll ever met a person that says that white genocide is happening right now, and we need to do something right now that's drastic, either than white identitarianism, I can tell him, calm down. It's going to be at least 500 years until the crisis is happening.
We didn't say the Yeah, this is
because you cannot tell them calm down, because if they don't act within the next few years and within the next few decades, certain countries may be in a position where they take irreversible steps toward the extinction of the white race, which, yes, will happen in the future.
Okay, so it's hypothetical, but you don't really know when. That's fair enough, right? What do you do with people who don't want
Again,
to
you strawman. Did I say I don't really know what's going to happen in 500 years?
You don't have an idea.
We do know some things about birth rates, V. We do know some things about the birth rates of Muslims.
I think there'll be a crisis
in Canada
a lot sooner than 500 years, to be honest.
Okay. But my question is, what do you do towards people who don't want to take part into white identitarianism? And what do you do if you find out you're just a minority of people and the overwhelming majority don't care about white identitarianism and they don't want to be a part of it?
Okay.
Maybe
I think we go on live debate shows and we talk about how our political philosophy, and we kind of change people's minds. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I mean, what the alt-right is about is raising consciousness. Fundamentally, it's again, the alt-right could have just become a Trump cheerleading section, like a lot of the alt-right or so on. I think that would have been actually a grave sin. The fact is, there is a time to be a cheerleader of sorts, but there's also a time to be critical, and there's a time to be looking out ahead. And I think that's what's great about the alt-right, is that it has embraced an identitarian philosophy, and so we are raising consciousness in a new way, in a way that wasn't there before. Now, in terms of, like, if you want me to get a little more, I don't know, nitty gritty or about this. Sure. I don't believe that in any society, or let me rephrase that. I don't believe that historical change occurs because one rationally convinces the entire society, or 51% of it, to agree with something, and then we kind of move forward like that. The fact is, minority populations have had a tremendous amount of effect, whether those are, say, ethnic minorities that are networked and act as groups, whether those are elite classes. The fact is, in terms of the development of history, elites have more power than the average hoi polloi. Elites set the tone for a society. Things trickle down from them. Things trickle up too. But in terms of political decisions, it is often elites that change things. So again, if my goal was to rationally convince the entire world, or 51% of the world, to agree with everything I said, that's a bit ridiculous. But that's ridiculous for every single ideology out there. I mean, why even get out of bed in the morning? The fact is, we want to form an elite. We want people highly placed within the system who can make decisions that are good decisions, whether they make them on behalf of the alt-right or identitarians. Regardless, it's irrelevant. The fact is that they're making the right one. So yeah, I mean, this is what we're doing right now.
Hey, Richard, actually, and I'll try and clarify V's point, and V, correct me if I'm wrong, or his question rather.
Okay.
What V, I think what he's asking is, say there's someone like V or Arch or whoever is not down for the ethno state, right? And they have these beliefs currently at this time, but then there is an ethno state. What would you do with someone like V or Arch? Would you just
or Antifa, for instance?
Or Antifa. Would you?
They're white people, yeah.
You let them live their lives and just whatever, peace out. I guess I'll see you on the other side.
Society, they're dissidents and heretics.
So you're fine with that. So say, for example, let's say like 7 to 10% of the population wants the ethno state. They all move in there, and then everyone else just lives their lives through whatever.
I mean, look. Let me answer this. Within an ethno state, there's going to be a left and a right. There's going to be socialists and libertarians. There might even be an Antifa. Like, I get it. A society has many layers. There's going to be rich people. There's going to be there's a homeless population. Within the ethno state, we're going to have tons of problems. We might have another opioid epidemic on our hands in this utopian order that I've dreamt up. I mean, I am realistic about that. Again, it's about setting the tone and having people in positions of power to make these decisions. That's what's key. And so, yeah, there'll be people who disagree with it. There are people who disagree with America right now. It's just...
Honestly, I hear a lot of platitudes, but I mean, they sound good. You're very charismatic, and I'm pretty sure you resonate in the hearts of a lot of people, but it's nothing concrete, like nothing's a step-by-step guide on how to achieve these things. What do you think, Arch? Because you haven't spoken for a while.
Well, I'd like to answer to your question, V, because I may have a slightly different answer than Richard. Personally, and that's because of my type of separatism, I don't care if most of the white race doesn't even want to live in the ethno-state. I mean, 95% of the whites, I wouldn't want them in my society. And so if there is some time, when an ethno-state emerges, it's going to be in a place. It's going to be either in Europe or in North America, or it could be Quebec. I mean, I don't think it's very possible, but it could be a part of the Quebec territory that separates. If that happens, I don't mind if not all white people want to live there. And it's fine that there are multicultural societies, and I'm super happy if people can self-select to stay in the multicultural society if they are so inclined.
Would you allow me into the Quebecois ethno-state? I mean, this is actually an interesting
Well,
question.
the Quebecois ethno-state would certainly not be racial. The Quebecois people is too kind for that. So it would welcome people of all races, and it would be a country of immigration, unfortunately. But I was talking in the hypotheticals here.
Right,
so yes,
Arch,
you would be welcomed in Quebec.
But I'm a
Arch,
total English-speaking
Yes,
Anglo.
I just want to point out that the problem with Arch is that he's overly polite. It's part of Norwegian culture. Like he will not interject or interrupt anyone, and it's not very good for blood sports.
I will,
so
but only when I feel like it.
Just 1 second. So, Arch, I wanted to respond to what the original point was, and then I have a question for you. So you can go ahead.
Okay, well, you'll have to repeat the original point for me a little bit, because we left that behind a while ago.
I think V wanted you to clarify something or respond. V, what was that? Like, exactly?
Oh, yeah, I see it now. No, I kind of agree. I mean, all of this sounds very utopian and not very utilitarian. It sounds to me like you've watched the movie Black Panther and you would like White Wakanda.
And, okay, one question here from Clausen, Lord of Virulence. $50. Thank you very much. Arch, the U.S. has already been splintering. Look at the political divides, not to mention the cultural divides growing between regions such as California, the South, Northeastern Corridor, etc. The seeds are being sown whether we like it or not. What do you have to say about that?
All right. Well, I'm not that knowledgeable about like interstate politics. There might be stuff I'm unaware of, obviously. But as far as I can see, the US still seems to be operating fairly normally. I haven't seen any major signs of brewing civil war, major political discourse. There was a little spat, I think, a while before the recent election where, was it Texas was trying to secede from the Union for a little while? I don't think it ever actually got anywhere, but there was a petition at the very least. I think that's the most extreme thing I've seen, so I couldn't really comment.
All right. And actually, Richard, here's a good one, actually, from Arthmisia, $2. But they say this, and it actually makes sense from what you were saying earlier about your ethno-state, having different, political parties, maybe an Antifa, homelessness or, some crime. He says, so an ethno-state with the same issues as today? LOL. So I think his point is, what's the point of making an ethno-state if it'll have the same problems as we have today?
No, it won't have the same issues of today. Well, I mean, my point in saying that was basically that this is not going to be a utopian society where we'll all have angels' wings and no genitals or something like
White
that,
Wakanda.
and everyone will be it's not going to be white Wakanda. I'm just simply being realistic. In any kind of order, we're still human beings living in the real world. There's still going to be class problems. There's going to be a homeless problem, drug problem, sure, but there isn't going to be the race problem. And there also wouldn't be that inter-white warfare problem. And so we want to overcome that so that we can actually deal with real issues. Like if we think about the gun control debate, which is on everyone's lips right now. I just did a video and podcast on this. But again, this is really a proxy issue for race to a very large extent. When liberals hear gun, they basically think, or they think about gun control. They basically think about
guns. They're awesome.
Right. They basically think about right. They basically, when urban liberals hear it, they think about, oh, black criminals who are armed. Let's get the guns out of their hands. When a rural white person hears the word gun, they think about sport, protecting myself, hunting, collecting, all that kind of good, healthy stuff. And so we're just talking past each other because we can't really address the real issue. So the race issue would no longer be operative within the ethnostate. We're going to have our problems, but we won't have this one. And the race issue is the most poisonous, the most divisive, the most suffocating in a way of free expression than any other issue. And that's the one we want to solve. We want to get rid of that. We don't want to be arguing about proxies for race. We actually want to be arguing about building a better future for our children.
Well, okay. So first of all, I kind of think that you see white person as Republican and minorities as Democrat, because there's plenty of white bourgeoisie people that hate guns, like people from
Antifa. I was referring to exactly when I said the gun control debate. Gun control debate is pushed forward by white liberals, no question.
Yeah, the way I view it, my ideology wants to fix with the issues that we have right now, this very moment. One of these issues is mass immigration. And the reason I disagree with your ideology is that when it comes to tactics, for instance, against mass immigration, you can have the economic argument, which appeals to the person's self-interest. And it tells a person, it's like, look, if you have more immigrants coming in, there will be less jobs, there will be more strain on the welfare, there's going to be more strain on the infrastructure, the immigrants commit more crimes, right? And now you're going to have most white people on your side, probably most working class people, and you're going to have some minorities. The counter argument to this comes from the mainstream media and politicians that say, well, people who are against immigration are racist assholes. And when you say, no, we're not racist assholes, we're with the economy, we care about the worker, right? You're going to make the media look unhinged. Now, the race argument means that, okay, we don't want immigration because they're brown people, right? Now, you probably won't get even the vast majority of whites on your side right now, because the white identitarian thing doesn't exist that much right now. And brown people in your nation are going to say, holy shit, these people don't want more people coming in because they're brown. Well, I'm brown as well. I need to get more brown people in now because I need a buffer to protect myself from these other people. And the media who says, well, people are racist, and the politicians say people who are against immigration are racist, are going to be proven right, and they're going to get more votes. So when it comes to the argument that you can use against immigration, for instance, I think the economic argument is far stronger and more compelling to people right now than the race argument.
You're basically making an argument about short-term political strategery. Which I hear very often, which is that, the alt-right's a poison pill. Just let us do it. We'll take it from here, guys. We race colorblind conservatives. Well, conservatives have had their chance to do this, and they have achieved effectively nothing. They have expanded gun rights to a large degree. They have absolutely lost every cultural battle they have ever taken up arms against. They have not limited government on their own terms. They are abject failures, and they've been doing this for decades. And yet, apparently, just leave it to us, guys. The alt-right's just screwing things up. So you're just making a strategic argument. I mean, I could even agree with your argument in some immediate short term. It's irrelevant. You're not making a really substantial one. But I would say this. Ultimately, the alt-right is going to succeed because we are fundamentally right, and we speak more to human nature. Like you talk about, you're going to convince people about an economic argument. Is that really the thing that drives people, that makes people truly concerned about the immigration debate? No. They're ultimately concerned about the racial aspect. They are ultimately concerned in their gut, not necessarily in their frontal lobe, but in their heart and in their gut about the race issue. They don't want to be displaced from their home. They don't want to see their grandchildren put into a society that does not share their values at all. Actually, the fact is, Republicans win on the racial issue, even though they don't like to talk about it. And some of this is abject race baiting, which they've engaged in almost every election, long before Donald Trump. But the fact is, people are attracted. They're still voting for the Republican Party because they unconsciously see it as the white man's party. This is the party of the normal people. This is the party for us.
Actually,
and the fact is that's worked electorally for a long time, but even that is breaking down, and even that is going to cease working. Identitarianism is the future, and that is a conscious, overt embrace.
I noticed you go on these tangents that go beyond the question asked, and you're taking up a lot of time. I don't know if you're doing it on purpose or you're just passionate about what you're saying. I'm going to be more charitable.
I'm just passionate, V.
Yeah, the way I see it is that you're not concerned with the present at all, and your ideology is a utopian one that's based on the future. In the present, you're going like, yeah, let's plant the seeds of white identitarianism, so when the crisis happens, everyone is going to just segregate and it's going to be beautiful. But I am concerned with things that are happening now. For instance, affirmative action is shit that's happening now. Google being controlled by progressives, and they have access to everyone's email and they have access to everyone's information, is happening now. If I want to date a girl that's not a feminist, this shit is happening now. This shit is affecting my life right now, and I need solutions for the present. Not for the dream when, you know, the crisis is inevitably going to happen. And I don't think the solution right now is white identitarianism. I mean, if you want to plant the seeds and do your thing, that's fine. But I think right now people need to get rid of hate speech laws. People need to get rid of affirmative action. People need to promote meritocracy, for instance. And the economy is very important. Like, economy is not just, you know, being greedy and being wealthy. It also allows a nation to expand its power, to expand its influence. It allows infrastructure to work. It allows people to create jobs.
That's all fine and good. Actually,
it's very important.
Sure, it's very important. I actually, on a lot of these issues, I don't know you terribly well, but on a lot of these issues, I might actually agree with you. But what I am saying is that what is missing from this debate is a sense of identity and a sense of the future. I mean, yes, I think that political actors should be thinking 2 decades, 100 years ahead. This is what the current system is missing. So, I mean, I guess guilty as charged. But the other thing is, you have to ask your question, why do we have all these things? Why are the problems all basically racial or anti-white and anti-white male in nature? All of those things you said. SJW is controlling Google, affirmative action, mass immigration, multiculturalism, feminists, etc. Why are all those things happening? All of those things have a racial component and to them, each and every one of them. So we can't just say, oh, let's twist this knob, let's lift this lever, and we'll solve everything. We actually have to understand each and every one of those short-term issues on a fundamentally racial
I'll explain
manner.
why we have these problems. We have it because politicians and corporations benefit from splintering the citizens of a nation. Give me a Neton state, 100% white, and give me the money that George Soros have, and I will cause division in your nation. I'll use class warfare against the people. I can use feminism that divides based on sex. I can use religion. I can even use ethnicity, assuming that is just the white race and not ethnical. I can use historical grievances. There's a lot of ways to divide people other than race. Race is just one of them. The moment you allow your nation to be divided is the moment you're going to be subverted and other foreign powers have to gain. Take Black Lives Matter, for instance. This is an organization that's meant to subvert Black people in your nation. Black people are told that the whites are oppressing them, that working hard and going to school is working against their own interest because they should stay home and get welfare, right? And there's millions of dollars that are being pushed into getting blacks to think this way. If blacks would think this way by themselves, there would be no need for this propaganda. There would be no need for NGOs to spend so much money in keeping them just a voting bloc that constantly votes Democrat. There are other interests at play here, is what I'm trying to say, other than the race one.
I agree that there are other sinister global interests at play in all of these things. That being said, I mean, Black Lives Matter is an identity organization. It really appeals to them on some basic level, regardless of the fact that it's getting, monies flowing into it from big sources. But I think we should go to the super chat. I think we're kind of getting a little bit lost.
Yeah. All right. So just a couple of super chats before we do our final statements here. So Michael Connolly threw $20. Thank you very much, Richard. If history isn't changed by people getting together and agreeing on ideas, then why are you even trying to change anyone's mind? What is the left doing right now?
Right. The history isn't, I agree, history is not changed by convincing everyone or convincing 51% of the people. And in fact, so much of history changes because of great men, of remarkable individuals who are in charge of power or who have cultural power, etc., setting a new tone and setting a new course. I do want to convince, there's nothing wrong with convincing a lot of people. And I obviously go on shows like this, and I am attempting to convince all the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands watching this that I'm right, sure. But at the end of the day, it ultimately is about reaching those people who are going to really change the world. Someone who has cultural or social or political power is the equivalent of 1,000 or maybe even 1,000,000 people who don't have those talents or in those positions. And we ultimately do want to reach them. One of the ways to reaching them is a kind of spreading of these ideas like a meme through society. So again, there's no real contradiction between getting into a vigorous debate with people, although there is actually a lot more agreement on here than disagreement, to be honest. And my recognition that it actually is certain elites and even certain individuals that change the course of history.
All right. And VGEDRR, $20, says liberalists do not understand, no matter what, a degradation of society will continue for decades. They ignore that which will make their solution impossible, will also make ethno-states unnecessary. So to V and Arch, I think what he's just trying to say there is he thinks that liberalists aren't looking in the long term, just the short term now. Any response to that?
What I think that is a good old-fashioned logical fallacy known as the false dilemma. There's a good and there's an evil. In this case, the liberalists are the bad guys. We simply cannot come up with a solution. It's categorical, and therefore the ethno-state must be the good side in this.
All right. So question for Richard Spencer and JF. Have either of you read Theodore J. Kagrinsky's A Unabomber Manifesto? And
there's Sargon in the super chest. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah. I'll read that. I'll read that one in a second. Have you ever read Loki? By the way,
I did read Loki.
Oh, by the way, yeah.
But
I
Richard,
didn't read
Manic God of Mischief. Yes.
Yeah. After I fucked that up on the last show, that has stuck with on the
it's
memes
become a meme
non-stop. Oh, it's so cringy. So what are your thoughts on that, the Unabomber Manifesto, in regards to industrialism, leftism, and as a whole?
I haven't read it in its entirety. I've seen some people post certain sentences from it, and they can be interesting. It kind of reminded me a little bit of someone, an author. Was it Piccola? I'm forgetting his name. He's a radical environmentalist. Arctos published a book by his. It's an interesting perspective. It's not really my perspective. I don't think we're going to enter a totally end of industrial society and so on. But I'm willing to tolerate. I'm willing to read those ideas. Just because someone did terrible things does not mean that the ideas themselves are terrible. So, but he's not been an influence.
Okay, JF.
Yeah, I didn't read it, but I would like to ask to the author of this manifesto: have you read Loki?
I have just one question, which, God damn it, I forgot to ask Spencer, and this is really interesting. Do you believe that the Constitution of the United States is just a piece of paper? I want to clarify this, because some people were saying that this is the case. Like Crowder, I believe, was saying this, Stephen Crowder.
Well, I mean, it's obviously more than just a piece of paper in the sense that it's a legal system, so it law acts in a different way, and law does become material at some level. one can be ultimately
But
arrested.
do you believe in it? That's the question, right? That's the fundamental.
I believe that certainly the Constitution had noble ends in mind when it was created. I think there are a great deal of goodness to the Constitution. But again, I am not a legal fetishist in the sense that if we need to survive, if we need to create an order that will be better for our children, and it is unconstitutional, then I will certainly throw it out the window. The fact is, the survival of our people is more important than any law, and we can't just fetishize law.
Is there though an article in the Constitution that you would never throw? Like, is there something in the Constitution that say, okay, I would never throw this article?
No. But also one point, a Constitution is really ultimately as great as the men enforcing it. So I'm not
like freedom of speech, for the right to bear arms. Like, is there not one single article that you say, okay, this is so important for me that I would never throw it away?
In an ethno state, I'm sure that we would have some kind of freedom of speech provision. But again, total freedom of speech. We go to these exceptional cases. No, of course not. But would we tolerate dissenting views and robust debate? Of course. Freedom to bear arms for sporting or protection, or a kind of deterrent against a totalitarian order. That sounds great to me. But what I'm saying is the sense of, am I going to fetishize legality to a point that we won't choose survival if there is that conflict? Survival has to come before legality. And then also, just to reiterate, a constitution really is about blood and not about ink. If you want to use these metaphors, it's about the people. Right? You can give Liberia a constitution, and it's going to be Liberia. There are many places that don't have constitutions. The United Kingdom has effectively a law tradition and not an absolute constitution. Germany has a kind of basic law that was given to it by the victors of the war, and it has a functioning society. So I mean, the people, blood is thicker than ink. That's a good turn of phrase.
So the thing with, like, we would do anything for the survival of the white race. You created a greater good there, and the problem with the greater good is the person who's enforcing it. Now, all it needs to do is for a government that's a little bit more radical to say, well, it's important for the survival of white race that we remove this and this amendment. Like, for instance, the right to bear arms, right? They could make the justification that's false, obviously, that, because weapons kill people, we need to restrict them or something like that. And it's for the greater good of the white people. And when they make that justification, they are now allowed to remove specific rights that people had. And this is why I'm not comfortable with it.
Okay. We could get into a long debate about this. I think we should.
Yeah, I know. We should do this another time.
Yeah, definitely. Just a couple more here. Loki Hades donated 14.
We need a meme of like Tom Hiddleston, like with like Locke's book. Like that can be kind of funny.
Yeah, and he donated 1488 PHP. Have you even read me? He says, and anything that I see that's good right now. All right. So Descendant Patriot, $20. Do you think Asians will side with the white race if a race war breaks out? Both being high cultured people, I see Asians and whites interacting in my town, and it's friendly. The neighborhoods are quietly next to each other. Or is it only whites?
Well, the race war will be fought on the plane of anime. So,
yeah, okay.
I don't know what that meant. That doesn't make sense. I was just no, yeah. I mean, look, in terms of like an Asian minority within a country, if there is a total social breakdown and there's violence in the street and all that kind of stuff. I could see that, sure. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. And will China side with the white race or something? I'm not sure about that. In the case of larger blocks, not so sure.
Actually, Bogue asked Interesting question here for 50MX. Never heard of MX in my life. Question for the pro ethnostate. SJWs are 90% white. Is it genetic, cultural, or racial? And how do you solve the SJW problem in the ethnostate?
It's a Mexican peso, Worski. You heard about the Mexican peso? I'm from fucking Romania.
Never seen it. Never seen it.
You've never seen a peso.
Is this some new kind of form of Bitcoin?
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. SJWs. I actually do think SJWism is genetic, and there is certainly a Jewish quality to the left as we see it now. But let's
shut her down.
Aside. But let's put that aside. And yeah, there are a lot of white non-Jewish SJWs. I do think that whites we have this tendency towards idealism, and we have this tendency towards putting our own identity in injecting it into abstract concepts or sometimes corporate entities. So with people like V and Arch, I think they are identifying with a corporate body in a way that Mexicans don't, in a way that Africans don't. You are saying, I'm not just an individual. I'm part of this civic order. There is something very white about that, or white. And I think there's also something very white about SJWism. I mean, again, putting the Jewish question aside, it's this kind of fanaticism and a hysteria of getting so captured by something that is effectively a religious ideal. That it's only white people would do this. I agree. I'm afraid it is genetic.
On my side, considering the SJW problem, I will point out it's the current form of SJW is a lot imposed by the academics. And you don't become such SJWs just genetically, although I agree that political preferences are probably genetic at the root. And then they get exposed to college education, which is essentially an industrial production for SJWs. So I would point out that in an ethnostate, this could take a different form. But although to get rid of that problem, that's why personally I favor a kind of ethnostate where people would have to make the decision, I want to join this free white society. And that's why I want to leave a lot of people behind based on self-selection. If an SJW looks at our constitution and says, I don't like it, I'm happy to have a space for them so they can live their multicultural dream.
Okay,
I would like, hold on,
yes,
I would just
sure.
a citation for this, because this sounds interesting, but, and it's not a gotcha, but it's like political preferences are genetical at the root. Could you offer
well, you can
some...
look at the amount of irritability of religion and political beliefs. I mean, it's very high. So
correlation is not equal causation. I'm asking for a study that would show causation to the correlation, not just, observation.
We haven't isolated a gene, but...
Yeah.
But yeah,
no,
there is a very strong
irritable. That's what matters. If it's irritable,
well,
very strong
it makes sense that if your parents are Christian, they're going to teach you how to be a Christian. This is more nurture than nature, in my opinion.
I don't care about the nature-nurture debate. What I care about is whether it's irritable or not. Then is it in a letter of DNA or is it in the brain of the parent and it gets copied?
I don't think. All right. I will disprove this theory. Right? If you have two Christian parents that have a child and that child is taken and is raised by Buddhist monks, he's not going to become a Christian because of his genetics.
No, of course, there are extreme situations. The reality is, in the way the world deploys, in the factual observed reality, children tend to be with their parents and they tend to inherit these political beliefs. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to know in terms of political decision making.
This is upbringing, JF. I disagree with you that this is genetical.
Because I'm not going to be upbrought by a Buddhist. Because I'm not going to be upbrought by a Buddhist parent. So I don't care if I could potentially be taught Buddhism. That's won't happen.
That's not my point. If the kid was indeed genetically predisposed to become a Christian, then if you would raise it in another environment, and I'm telling you, if you would put him on an island...
It's not genetically predisposition to become Christian. I mean, there's obviously no gene for Christianity. There probably is a gene for fervency of religious belief. I actually look back at my own immediate family, including my parents and grandparents and so on. The ferocity at which we believe in Christianity is very not very high. to be honest.
No, I'm not
and I don't think that's and I don't. Again, we could argue nature nurture all day long, as JF is saying, but the fact is it is what it is. There are people. I think this is an interesting way also of thinking about history. The United States was really self-selected for puritanical nut jobs in many ways. The original people who were coming here, and you can actually still see a lot of this. They're no longer Christians; they're mild Christians, but the fervency with which they believe in this universal morality and a sense of sin, original sin.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, mate. I am more than willing to believe that there is indeed a genetical argument to say that some people will be more fervent in religion than others. But the idea that genes are political preferences are genetical at the root. I strongly disagree. I mean, if you have parents that are Republican, yeah, they are going to teach you how to be a Republican. But if the
we just answered you on that.
We don't care about what you disagree with. The facts are that I've pointed to a study about twin studies from Pew Research, and the self-identified ideology is determined by genetic factors by 56%. Ideology scale is determined by 58% genetics. Egalitarianism is determined 50% by genetics, and attitudes towards social organization 54% determined by genetics. So the variance in the current world of political beliefs is heavily under genetic control.
We're going to have to make a different stream.
Yeah, that'd be
Let's go to more. I have to go, but let's do like one or two more super chats.
Yeah,
so you can conclude
actually,
first.
there's just one more thing I just want to say because someone donated here and V brought it up, but Schwann's Gruberman threw $20 to say, tell V his alpha white male capitalist sugar daddy is watching. That's Sargon. Sup, Sargon?
I know the guy.
Yeah. So, So actually, the one thing I want to ask you, Richard, because Sargon eventually, he has not set in stone, but wanted to do another debate with you eventually in the future. But you were telling me earlier that you said
the rumble in the Google Hangout chat room.
Yeah, but you were saying
Sargon v. Spencer.
Yeah.
Social
but you were
justice.
saying that since that debate, you've seen him change a little bit, like through things he's been doing. Like, what was that exactly? And
well,
do you think
I
it's
mean,
positive
look,
or negative?
It actually hasn't been in what he believes. It seems to be on his perception of how he's going to act. So this creation of a liberalist grouping, it's this: we must be collectivist in order to promote individual liberty and individualism. That is interesting. It's a strategic change, but it's a very strong strategic change that seems to imply something deeper has changed.
So you think it's more positive then, right? In your opinion?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's positive. He's recognizing reality.
Collectivism is hive mind, Richard. I don't think Sargon is acting for people to stop thinking for themselves and become a hive mind. You said collectivism. That is what collectivism is.
He himself said this, that there needs to be a collective for liberal.
Yes, and so collective is different than collectivism. Ism stands for ideology. Collective. Okay. I know it's not the words that I made, by the way.
Autism.
These are the words that. Yeah, it is autistic that other people made these definitions.
It's autistic.
Here we go.
I promote autism.
I didn't create political
a collectivist
philosophy,
ideology for autists. Yeah, you should join V.
All
No,
right.
it's political philosophy. These are definitions that are already made. I don't like them either because they sound too much alike. But when you say the ism is the ideology, right? How do you make a group
granted
work?
you the point. I granted you the point.
All right.
Okay,
well, I have to say, after hearing this entire debate, really interesting, very, and I'm actually surprised you guys were all chill. Like, how do you all feel it went? Because, like, it got heated at some points, but not like, everyone's fucking bodies on the floor and blood's pouring everywhere. I'm sure half the audience wanted that, but
I'll say this.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the ethno state already. I mean, it's like I'm arguing. Well, the people I'm arguing against are like, no, Spencer, like we will have a total reduction of 100% of immigration, whether you like it or not. Like it's pretty interesting.
Don't worry, Richard. In our ethno state with V and ARC, there will be a place for us to be leftist, reasonable people in ARC's world.
Awesome.
I will take on the responsibility of giving you a home, JF. Don't worry.
Communists do that, Arch. We don't give free shit to people.
All right. So we'll do a final thoughts on this. And by the way, everyone, thank you for supporting the show. Hit like if you're enjoying. We did hit number 4 trending, so that was really cool, and a really civil conversation that was interesting, and surprisingly a lot of you were agreeable on a lot of things, so that was really cool. So let's start with you, Arch.
Okay, you know what, I'm going to do something very blood sportsman's like in honor of precisely that. I'm going to forego the closing statement and making any kind of political points. I'm just going to say thank you, Richard, and thank you, JF. This was a very civil conversation, and I think we actually got something done here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, beautiful. Oh, there's love in the air. You feel that?
Can I do my closing statement?
Yes. Yeah, please go ahead.
So I had this entire book of ad hominems, both for JF and for Richard, and I was saying if any of them say even something remotely disrespectful for me, I'm going to open the notebook. But unfortunately, I didn't get to use it. So this was indeed
you told me before. You were saying all the disses you had ready for JF, and I'm like, no, JF was praising you the other day, and he's like, oh, and
fuck. I felt bad,
yeah. You're a piece of shit.
Well, I
want to hear these. Go fuck yourself. What do you have against me? Put it.
Okay. Listen, I told them to Andy. They're really bad, so I'm not going to do them unless you're legitimately saying them from the heart.
Go ahead.
He went personal.
Very personal.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, V, anything else?
Well, there's going to be a circle jerk on my channel where we talk about this. I wish I would have talked more about my principles, but we got to hear a lot from the alt-right, so
maybe next time talk about the liberalist principles. I'd love to have a show on that at some point if you're down. Sure. So that'd be cool. Okay. Yeah, man.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, Arch and fucking V, guys, awesome job, and that was really entertaining. And I'm sure the audience loved that. I know it's very late for both of you, so thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Still time for a circle jerk on my channel. So talk to you guys later.
All right, sounds good. And Richard.
Well, I mean, I'll just add to the love fest. This is a lot of fun. I think I've spoken my piece, and thank you everyone, and hail victory.
There we go. And JF, you want to do your final statement there?
Yeah, I really appreciated the experience. And as far as my starting point was, is there a solution to the extinction of the white race in some countries right now that will happen maybe in 500 years, maybe in 50 years, maybe in 200 years? Who knows how the birth rates will evolve? I've not received any other solution than essentially form an ethno-state from ARC. Form an ethno-state at the level of the nation. I say form an ethno-state by separating some pieces of a country. Richard Spencer says, think about the ethno-state and think about the fact that it could be all of us together. All right, we have different situations and different solutions, but it seems that we didn't get a disagreement about the fundamental idea that white people should exist, that they should be in power to control their own civilization, and that it would be great if it was that way.
All right. No, that was beautiful. And I have to say one last thing before you all head out, and then JF and I do our post show. There's been a really big debate about the internet blood sports theme, right? And it was funny. Yesterday we saw, and I think today actually too, Thunderfoot having a mental breakdown and talking about how this is WWE blood sports, like everyone just yelling at each other. And I think today having people from opposing viewpoints chill, thank each other, and walk away with their own ideas, it proves that blood sports doesn't have to be just fucking yelling at each other. Sure, it happens, but it proves that's not all it is, and there is an actual deeper intellectual discussion that is to be had. So guys, thank you so much, really appreciate it, and hope to see you all in the future.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, Richard, peace.
See you.
And Arch, man, peace out, man. Thank you very much. God damn. That was good.
Sweet.
That was good. I'm actually getting, by the way, 100-foot cord tomorrow, and the internet's gonna be fixed. I turn on my camera, and literally, you guys, for like 2 minutes, I couldn't hear you. I was like freaking out. Tomorrow should be all fixed.
Are you on Wi-Fi at some point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I have a 40-foot cord, but since I switched the studio, the cord is too short to reach. Right, and plus I'm on the back
you'll
of the
want
computer.
to just make sure that the long cord, the signal can pass. You might need an amplifier or not. And you also don't want to go for OBS as long as this is not fixed.
Yeah, no.
Because OBS, you would slow down the
100-foot.
entire stream, and the entire stream might go off, actually.
Yeah, but I got the 40-foot. It's about 5 or 10 feet short, maybe a bit more. I'm buying 100-foot tomorrow, so it's like tons of slack. But yo, I have to say, man,
says 100-foot in triple parentheses. What the fuck are you talking about?
oh, yo, by the way, man, just right now, massive fucking donation from Augusto Jose Ramon Pinochet. Great debate wars. I salute all the guests and JF. Not sure if it qualifies as a blood sport, but mature and civil. Have a show on genetics of political affiliation. That would be really fucking interesting. But I have to say, man, like that was a solid conversation. I don't know, like it went really good.
And yes, it is blood sport. That's the answer to Pinochet. It's not. We must not use the label blood sport just because there is blood in the terms of the violence of the discourse. It's blood sports because we are martial artists of intellectual discourse, and we did a good fight. And after the end of the fight, we shake each other's hand, and we have respect for the warriors who have participated to it.
Yeah, I wish there was a way to the people who keep bitching, like it's not productive to be like to clip the entire thing in just like 30 seconds and go, look at these guys at the end who disagreed. And I'd love to have, V and Arch back on to discuss the liberalist stuff. I know we were supposed to do that last week, but then I had no idea there was a show and I wasn't home. And then you're like, Andy, where the fuck are you? I'm like, oh shit, so sorry. Yeah, apologize about that. But I'd love to have that discussion. And I think, like the respect. I know people are going, pussies, we wanted fucking blood. It'll happen eventually. In fact, I think Halsey, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. I
God, Halsey is so motivated. I can't wait for him to be back.
He is fucking awesome. Did you see that Photoshop he did?
Yeah.
So that's March 1st with him and David Duke.
Oh God!
And sorry, who was the other dude he's with?
There's let me check. It's David Duke, Tom Luongo, and who was it? Mark Collett.
That's it. Yeah, that's gonna be a fucking.
By the way, Alze used the old photo of Mark Collett. I'm used to see Mark Collett dressed in suit and everything. He used a photo where he looks like a young 18-year-old Nazi. I want to ask him about his past.
Halsey loves the blood sport. He loves accelerating it to a point where you're like, whoa, all right, brother. Oh, shit. And by the way, yeah, everyone hit like if you enjoyed. That was great, making it to number 4 worldwide trending. Here, let me do a little screen share here. I'm just, because I'm still on this goddamn
And people
laptop.
on the Warski Ghetto say I have small hands. I have huge hands, guys. I don't know. I don't know how I present them to the camera. Let me tell you, I have bigger hands than anyone I've met. My fingers are extremely long. I don't know how to illustrate it so you can see, because I still have a big face, but I do have very long fingers. So that's all lies.
There you go. No more fake news, please. All right. So yeah, that was an excellent show. By the way, do you have any statements for Mr. Thunderfoot?
Well, Mr. Thunderfoot,
he was taking shots at you all night last night.
Yeah, I mean, this is worrying at the mental level, as far as I'm concerned, on his part. He's making the same type of obsession that Destiny has been making. What is it in the sexual life of a guy in Quebec that bothers you so much you have to spend the whole night tweeting about it. It's very worrying mentally for you, Thunderfoot. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
But that illustrates what I've been thinking about the skeptics community for years, that one day they would end up acting like SJWs. And people like Sargon and V, however I can disagree with them, I know that they are very aware of this and they know how to handle respectful political discourse.
I agree.
But people like Thunderfoot, as soon as they fall into the political arena, they don't know what they're talking about. And they suddenly start believing false claims from an ex when they are the one posing as skeptics. And when they talk about science, it's all about proving stuff, not believing in the Bible. But Thunderfoot believes in the statements of my ex the way a Catholic believes in the Bible, with no supporting evidence.
Yeah, he was taking some bad shots, and I'll say like the worst one, and I backed you up on this. I don't know if you saw it, because did you see the one where...
I didn't, because I blocked him, so I don't see these tweets.
Yeah, so I mean, we've discussed this before, and you know, the doctor went over your ex, who was a high functioning autist, right?
Yep.
Didn't he make a tweet putting a picture of you next to someone with Down syndrome?
Oh yeah, I saw that one. Because when they are blocked, you can actually look at their profile for temporary times, and I did see it, which is absolutely ridiculous. The first thing is he claims that it's a fair attack on my personality, because he says he's for a per race ethno state, and yet he fucks retards. There are many levels of ridicule in this. First, I'm not even for per race ethno states. I've never argued for the purity of the white race. You've never heard me use the word purity. I don't care all that much about it. The second thing is, in my personal life, I fuck whoever I want. I don't care. It's my choice. I'm talking about society and how we could make a better society for Western civilization. And it doesn't relate at all to my personal life. The third ridicule aspect of it is that he illustrates a Down syndrome person who this is not the same thing. Down syndrome is different from autism. Autism is something that you wouldn't even notice in some people. It's a very mild disorder compared to Down syndrome.
Fucking atrocious. I'm like here's the thing is, I don't have anything to say about their ideas, and I don't want to debate. And like the way he framed the internet blood sports yesterday, like I said, was just yelling, autistic screeching, this and that. And yeah, there's been heated moments, but god damn, this
amazingly, Thunderfoot's critique of blood sports applies more to his tweet timeline this night than to the actual blood sports.
Yo, that's so true, dude. Oh my god. Anyway, let's get on to some super chats. Yeah, man, I was fucking appalled last night by Thunderfoot. I knew he hit low sometimes, but god damn, that was fucked.
And that's the beauty of blood sports, is that the fact that all blows are legal, to me, it's a good opportunity to see what people have inside of them. And so that's what Thunderfoot argued. He said, oh, JF said all blows were legal, therefore I can attack his private life. Yeah, you can. And it shows us how much of a ridiculous asshole you are.
Exactly. Everything is legal, but you can make yourself look like a fucking idiot at the same time. Anyway, yeah, man. Thanks for that response there. And let's start reading some super chats from these beautiful people. Striker Quiet, $2.
We now see colors in the super chats.
Yeah, they enhanced it. They also quite heavily censored the chat and the super chats as well. They did do that. I guess, you know, shit went a little out of hand on certain people's channels. Not gonna say it was us, but yeah. Striker Quiet, $2. What color is my wife's? Okay, Jesus Christ. Unbecoming Trout, $5. Diversity. Intergalactic Lebanese $5. I'm on board with a lot of the alt-right, though, but one question I have is how would the alt-right deal with non-white veteran families? Ooh, that's a good one. I wish I saw that earlier. Dynamic Frog, £5. Richard Spencer needs to read up on the Callergy plan to understand what the EU stands for. Andrew Howie, £10. Can I go on holiday to Richard's ethno state if I am a faggot with a lot of money or oil? Big boy, $5. JF is the dried CVM that hold the conversation together and keeps everyone on topic.
Seems like a positive statement, but I don't know what a CVM is.
Yeah. The Dashing Rogue, $5. Google Eurasian Union, dreamed up by Calgary or Kellergy, however, brought into existence by Russia. Ray Edwards, $10. Damn it, I have to go cause work. Hate not being able to stay sometimes. But JF, please notice me so I can later watch. So I can see later when I rewatch.
You have been noticed. 8 p.m. February 22nd. You have been added to the notice log.
EST, Eastern Standard Time. Intergalactic Lebanese, $10. Spencer, do you think the best way to restore the demographics of the U.S. would be a one-child policy for minorities, or would an all-white immigration policy suffice? What do you think he would say to that?
That would be horrible. I mean, it's actually more violent than even a civil war to establish an ethno-state. You're not going to keep people under reproducing. That would be extremely
the amount of
violent.
Abortions would have to be crazy. Jeez. Marsanius Valerius. God, the fucking names are hard to read today. 5 CHF. Just like Manlets, the EU must be destroyed. No compromise. Jugos Raz. Serbs aren't white. All hail the Ustage Glander. Glardner did nothing wrong. Alex Hill, $2 for Richard. Which European country has the best food? VGEDRR, $5. Liberalists would rule based on authority gained by technicalities, just like they debate through objections justified by technicalities. Vinny S, $20. Jeff, what is your opinion of Hans Hermann Hope take on libertarianism, which with close borders and physical removal?
It's on my to-do list to read, but I agree with the idea of closed border. I'm not a libertarian of the kind that denies borders.
Ooh, and a swing at JF here. Neon Noir, £10. Halsey versus Fuentes rematch. JF sucks. Ooh.
No.
All right. Lost Wingman 07, $5. By JF's logic, Congress voting a law without 100% votes is authoritarian.
Absolutely. If you make laws that apply to people without their consent, you are violating some of their private rights.
All right, Quebec, $35. Great discussion. JF, you rock. Can discrimination laws be undone in the U.S.? What laws would stop us from ending all Muslim immigration into the U.S.?
Laws would not stop you, but probably putting a religious connotation to the law in immigration would be rejected. But you could do it indirectly by selecting the countries. I don't think it would be against the law. I think that's why Trump's ban did not fully fall.
All right. You want to read on for a little bit?
All right. National capitalist, $2 Australian. Cultural nationalism is greater than ethno and civic nationalism. Kind, $2, €2. V doesn't understand rights are taken, not given. VGEDRR, $5 Australian. 9 out of 10 liberalists agree. If your authoritarianism is backed up by a law, then you are A-OK. That was my point. Essentially, laws, they are forms of authority that apply to some people that have not necessarily consented to them. Adolf Wolf, $5 US. This is driving me nuts. America is a democratic republic, more a republic than a democracy. We elect people to represent us to make the majority of choices. Yeah, as far as the whole discussion goes, we use the word democracy, but it was also pointing to democratic republics. We did not make a differentiation between the two. NA, £10. Stop pretending the struggle won't end in a war. Debating whether people will allow an ethno-state is fruitless. This will end in might makes right. Prepare for conflict like Gen Identity R. Surges Evanson, 100 NOK. Norway is 91.5% white European. It's effectively an ethno-state apart from certain cities like Oslo, where there is a larger population of non-whites, which is why it's having more issues with crime. FAM, $5 Canadian. I just want to play my video games fap to porn and make fun of feminists in peace, okay? Triskelion Memester, $10 Canadian. Hey Andy, are you aware that you made it on the Montreal far left's most wanted list? First you get banned from Israel and now this. Is it true?
I checked that up. It's got 35 followers.
Okay. So there's two Antifa people, a guy and a girl. They're dirty in their bedroom and they are really pissed off at you.
They ain't fans. They ain't fans. Oh, which, by the way, actually, I'll read on for a bit, but I don't know if you saw. Have you ever heard of Hi, I Think I'm Real?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, he made a video about me, 15 minutes about the show, called "Andy, Your Show Sucks."
Oh.
Ooh, it was like a minute of calling me I think a thin-skinned cunt.
Okay.
Because I responded to Jeff Holiday and Sophane. So apparently they can do, 10 tweets about me, and then when I respond with a joke, that makes me
that's funny because we spent about 30 seconds responding to our detractors who spend the whole night tweeting and tweeting again. I think our responses are pretty balanced.
Yeah, but and then the rest was talking about why he doesn't like the alt-right and why the show sucks. So that was interesting.
As long as our show sucks enough to get to the number 4 trending show instead of the number 3, I'll live with it.
Yeah, terrible show. But I have to say, I enjoy the show. I have fun making it and being on it and moderating and debating like last time. So as long as I enjoy it and you enjoy it, JF, that's all that matters. You know what I mean?
And I think today you almost took the place of an audience. I think you just enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I jumped in near the halfway point to ask questions and moderate a little bit more. But yeah, man, I was loving it and seeing what the chat was saying and making sure it was all good. But yeah, it was great. My buddy texted me, by the way, today, just saying he watched the blood sports debate. He's like, Jesus, like that was ridiculous. how we just wiped the floor.
That was a true white flag.
That was beautiful. Benjamin Beltran, $20. Press 1 to kick V. Trashman, $20. What are your thoughts on forced integration of legal citizens that immigrated to a country by the government through acts of state violence / coercion against those that do not wish to be integrated into these societies?
Yeah, to me, it's a big problem because I want the immigrants to integrate, but I don't want to do it with force. And so as a libertarian, I'm exposing my society more to cultural ghettos developing because I want to offer them liberty, even if I don't like them. And so the answer to me is don't allow immigration too much.
Right. Striker Quiet, $5. Bro, V just went full academic agent. Have you ever even watched Spielberg, Richard? Based black, $10. Civic nationalism has failed to fully assimilate other black Americans into WASP culture. If you value free speech, small government, and individualism, then you will have to preserve a white majority. Jesus. Marcianus Valorus 10 CHF.
Marcianus.
How do you say that?
Marcianus.
Marcianus. I butchered that. 10 CHF. Just don't come to Switzerland. It's a literal shithole here. We have no toilets and all live in, I guess he meant sewages. I'm getting Wi-Fi signal from the only McDonald's in the country, which only serves halal food. Is that true?
I don't know about McDonald's, but I know that there are European countries where in certain areas it's very hard to get non-halal food.
Wow. Nicholas Dallum, $5. Thank you very much. All right, tree hugging vegan, $5. Thank you very much. Into J, $1. Thank you very much. Runar Hakas, 100 knock. To protect your family, would you resort to violence? If not, isn't that immoral? Should they die? That your pacifism may survive? If you would, why is it immoral to use it protecting an entire race? Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, I would use violence to protect my family for sure. Any thoughts on that, JF?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's all a framing of what is violence. So, is it violence that over 500 years, all of my descendants would eventually get outcompeted by higher birth rate Muslims? Is it violence? It's outbreeding. It's what we did to the Native Americans in many instances. We took their land and there was nothing else to hunt. So we created an ecosystem in which they could not survive, or at least not in their traditional way. So is it violence? To my sense, it is. Yes.
Okay. Nicholas Dalham, $5. Nations grow organically from genetics, and civilizations come from metagenetics. We need to encourage a balkazation, allowing for peaceful separation. How did I fuck up that word? Balkazation?
Balkanization.
Balkanization. All right. I got a little bit smarter there. All right. Dice Hazard, $5. $5 for the respectful and intelligent conversation. Nice to have some drama-free blood sports once in a while. I did enjoy this a lot. And I think on Monday we made up for about 4 episodes of blood sports.
Yeah.
You berries, $2. Go on, do it, Arch. All right, debate over. The Bastard, $2. Is Brown Warski allowed in the JF No State? Is Chris Warski allowed? He wants on, by the way. He wants on. He's like, I'd love to have hop on. He's gone for a week, but he'll be back, and he wants.
I thought you were calling Andy Brown Warski. You're talking about.
Oh wait, am
Chris
I
Brown Warski?
Well, yeah. Well, he's half black, half Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend if he exists, if he's there at the moment the ethno state is created. Probably not through immigration. Probably if he's there, if anyone who's there, I would offer full citizenship rights.
All right, and Jolene XX, $5. Andy, turn your microphone up. I did. I switched it to studio mode, and then it lowers a little bit, so that's why that happened for a sec. GI Joe Roo or Row, $5. I love you all. What is the veracity of this person's statements? It's the idea that matters. The mongrel armies won all the world wars. Aquapax is the only. No idea what's happening in that sentence. JF,
yeah, it's a complex sentence.
Yeah, my IQ doesn't really hit that level. Into J, $2. Thank you very much. Fam, $20. Oi Spencer, Iceland is 99% white. It's a white ethno state, but also very paused. I guess he means a lot of people have, positive HIV. Would you prefer to live in Iceland? Yes or no? Also, liberalist, do you like Iceland since it's all white and super gay and liberal? Is this true? Is it full of gay people?
I don't know if the statements are true. I'm happy that Iceland exists, and I'm happy that they're doing good, and I'm happy that they have liberties. I'm also happy that the people who are gay there will not be replaced by a Muslim extremist population through immigration. They will get replaced by their own race, which will evolve to avoid that kind of non-reproductive behavior.
Wait, Iceland, you better bring a jacket. Fuck yeah. I'm fucking hilarious. That's actually Chip Chipperson. You've heard that before.
I don't know about it.
Chip Chipperson is a guy I used to hear his radio show, and he does, I a character who just sucks at jokes. It's all like puns and shit. And he has his own podcast, who we might have on the show in the future. Okay, Jim Norton, and I love him. Oh my god. Base Black, $2. Pay me the right price, Richard, and I'm out. Peace. Gizora McGuire, $2. Wait for hyperinflation in 2024, 1488 HH. Benny, 1987, 20 DKK. USA will be South Africa 2.0 by 2100 at this rate. Gizora McGuire, $5. Trump and the Skull and Bones Goldman Society have set up Democrats to ruin this country in 2024. We will succeed. Okay. Thank you. Lauren Armstrong, $5. GoFundMe campaign, free tasers for every white American. Get on it. SJW faggot, screw your sensitives, $5. If we continue to immigrate en masse, how will the countries these people come from improve? Benny, 1987, 20 DKK. A demography and politics are different. Arch, problematic. Bob, £2. Look at South Africa. This is our future. You want to read on for a little bit?
Yeah, Uber is $20 US. Logistical questions are irrelevant right now. The mainstream considers even just race realism to be extreme, for fuck's sakes. Are whites a group allowed to have self-determination? Yes or no? Don't let the lolberalists dodge this. That's what I tried to do. Justin Wright, $5 US. Thank you for the donation. Dissident Patriot, $5 US. How will the white ethno-state deal with a Muslim-majority country to its northern border? Will it trade with these multicultural nations? I would say to the extent that it's beneficial, but there would probably be instances where it is and instances where it is not. Mimir's Head, $5 US. V and ARC have the luxury of not living with a 40% non-white population. Where I live, the race war has been festering for years and is getting worse. Lucas Chorazi, €5. Can we talk about more our current democratic system is not promoting long-term thinking? That could be an episode on its own. I'm disappointed that we could not explore it more, but it's an interesting question.
Yes, so much to go into every episode, man.
Yeah. Interest and Euro, $5 US. Wow, V is in favor of foreign wars in the Middle East on the behalf of Israel and the petrodollar. Well, shit, that sure activates my almonds. Yeah, that was a pretty magic moment. Benjamin Whittaker, $2 US. Thank you for the donation. Dill Pickle DZ, $4.20 Canadian. I'm only here for JF. Who's the gypsy? Haha. Zach Smith, $5 US. Matt Eaton is Beta Cock, hates Sonic Adventure. Louis Cypher, $5 US. Hey Richard, what are you going to do about men going their own way? Right. I think he would give them the freedom to do whatever they want. Marcus Delop, €10. There's been a lot of breakups. It's not that weird. Kosovo, Yugoslavia, and USSR come to mind. Sure, the US is more important, but what is better, the US breaking up or becoming a non-white superpower? Very good question. Krillin, 876, $5 US. Long-term predictions never come to fruition. Go ask Thomas Malthus. Vinny S, $10. The Adventures of Quebecois Senpai and Stuttering Chan. Thanks for this great event, guys.
Jesus. Here, I'll read on for a little bit. Is this mic okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I was just muting the other mics. SJW faggots, $2. It'd be a lot easier to implement in Australia. Dill Pickles, 1488. Just some spare change I wanted to donate. Thank you very much. Do these donations get split, or are you keeping it, you greedy bitch, Andy? No, I do pay JF. If you must know.
And I'm very happy about my share.
Yeah, definitely. And you all are keeping the show going and running. So thank you very much. I mean, if you can't donate, the best thing you could do to support the show is hit like, tell people about it. That's all we need. It needs more Jim. I'd love to have Jim back on. I think he wanted to hop on and talk about his political views, since not many people know exactly what his political views are.
Yeah, he's a mystery, but something tells me he's a little more alt-right than he's ever admitted.
You think so, eh?
Yeah, I'm gonna bet on that.
All right, I'll message him and let's plan that out soon times. LM, $5. V is a neocon, LOL, a Romanian wanting to suck off the teat of American empire. I spit on him. SJW faggots, $5. Breed more or have the Crusades again. Sergey Evanson, 50 knock. I wish Arch was Swedish, so him and his soy of national embarrassment wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary. Artemisia, $10. As a Native American, we believe if you are born here in America, you are Native American. Go to a powwow sometime. They teach this here, at least in the Cherokee Creek and Navajo nations. Yeah, I think so. Uberry, $5. Why would someone gas a Romanian before throwing him out of the debate? Jesus Christ. Sometimes I just fucking read him and just, LM, $5. The American Empire's purpose is to spread butt sex worldwide. I will cheer when it crumbles. Total spills, $5. This is the blood sports debate all over again. You shouldn't do something in your channel/country because it will affect my channel/country.
That's a quite hilarious view, because V is essentially commenting and ARC are commenting on Canadian and US politics, but from a position where they have different countries.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, definitely. This is only a test. 420. Can't wait to watch this. Also, kick V. Cullis, Lord of Verlance, $50. I did read this already, so thank you very much. Much appreciated. Would love you. Thank you. Red Comet of Jupiter, $2. Ask Arch if is that Corn is satisfied with it.
Is blood? That a blood god? Corn,
horn, maybe the K is silent. I don't know. 50 Shades of Lamp, $5. Hashtag V is going to resurrect the Iron Guard and complete the system of Romanian idealism. Hashtag. Michael Connolly, $20. I did read this one. Thank you very much for your donation. Appreciate that. Artemisia, $2. So and nothing will say, yeah, I read that one. Thank you very much. I love the Spike Man, $10. To the panel, what is wrong with voluntary association?
And nothing wrong with it.
No. Yeah. I just say VGEDRR. $20. I read this one already. Thank you very much. Light Side, 20 knock. Nothing concrete. Sounds familiar. Sargon. Vinny S, $5. Arch is the Tau Empire shill. Alex L, thank you for the $1 donation. Appreciate that. Schwann's Gruberman, $5. Tell V is capitalist sugar daddy. I read this one. Thank you very much. And then he threw another $20 so I could see that, and I did read that out. Thank you very much, Schwann's. Sergey Evanson, 20 knock. Arch and Sargon. Arch is Sargon without the arrogance. Valentine M, $10. Thank you very much for that donation there. Ouija, $10. V thinks the existence of an ethno-state tearing apart the U.S. is more drastic than the extinction of white people. Scary. Phineas, $10. A majority white society would have less crime by the simple fact that would not have a minority black that commits a majority of the crimes. Okay, I see what you're saying. Sorry, like it was sort of fucked up here, but yeah, fair enough. Lauren Armstrong, $5. All this talk of a far off ethno-state is retarded. The key is to foster white identity in the fastest way possible. You want to read on for a little bit?
Yeah, Theodore McCarthy, $10 US. Okay. The US is very unstable. In recent years, we have had race riots, ethnic massacres, government shutdowns, political violence, and a stand-up at the Bundy Ranch in which the government had to back down. That is all true. Mike Nackis, $14.48. Question for Richard Spencer and JF. Have either of you read Theodore? Okay, that one we read. We didn't read the book, the manifesto. SJW Faggots, $5 Australian. To address the race issue, should we divide state by ideology instead of race? It's a possibility. Personally, I tend to favor race, but you would accomplish the same goals with the two techniques, but in a slightly different way. Mike Nakis, $14.88 US. Whoops, meant to send this amount for the first time, but I'll donate again because I really enjoy internet blood sports. Follow-up question: have either of you heard of Knowledge Bombs by Anonymous 5? Nope, I've not heard about it.
Nope.
Boga 50 MX. Questions for the pro ethnostate. Okay, this one we read. All right. Striker Quiet, $10 US. For Richard and Jeff, what is your view on the eugenic potential for capitalism in a race-exclusive state? Do snake oilers harm victims or perform a morally nihilistic service of culling the herd? I am very worried about how eugenics will evolve within the next few decades. I'm writing a book about it. I believe that we are about to create machines that will select human genes, and we will eventually destroy ourselves with these machines because they will end up creating humans that will be heavily modified to be subservient to the machine. Colin Brefka. we should do a show about it.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I've always been very interested in. Are you talking about specifically just robots or machines, or like humans that are enhanced with
no, so what will happen is that humans will start trusting computers to make decisions about their genes, because we will know enough about genes to know that if I change this letter of DNA in Andy, I will make him less likely to die or less likely to have this disorder or that disorder. So it's going to start like this. Then we're going to start trusting the computer to make better and better humans. And at that point, we'll just get better and better, and we'll be like, hey, this is great.
Wait, so you're saying that before the baby is even born, you'll be, or machines and computers will be able to change the DNA or adjust it to make it what they would think as a healthier or more superior human being?
Exactly. And now there are some people who will be making the right decision for their children. Some people will be making the wrong decision. But in any case, we'll be creating humans who are better at reproduction through genetic modifications by the computer. Now, it doesn't end there. That's the terrible thing. This is an event that I call a phenotypic revolution. So that's when you start trusting an entity other than your parents to determine your genes. Now, the computer will be a reproductive entity in and of itself, because the computer will have some tricks. Some companies will be offering some recommendations, and some companies will be better at it than others. And these companies will spread across the world. They will start copying their hard drive information so that every human around the world gets the best recommendations. And now you have a replicative entity. Now your life form, that is the humans, they start competing against a computer that wants to reproduce also.
Yeah, because then you could have like, either the AI or a human who programs it can create what they think is the perfect human, but really it's not. It's just in their own perspective.
Absolutely. And in their perspective, what counts for the computer is to make as much copies of itself. Now, it's true that at the beginning, the computer does that by serving humans very well, but it doesn't have to stick to that. Now, as the computer starts making copies of itself, it starts creating armies of humans that are in a certain way that makes them better than other humans. So at this point, the groups of humans that are controlled genetically by sets of recommendations by the AI, they are competing against each other. Now, the problem is the computer can decide that human beings, the way they are right now, the kind of egotistical human being that we are, who care for our own survival, that's not performant enough. And then the computer can start making humans that are more and more enslaved to the idea of copying the computer rather than reproducing themselves. And that's the second stage of a phenotypic revolution, where the product that used to be the original life form becomes subservient to the dominating AI that now produces its genes. And the most spectacular thing about this scenario is that it already happened on Earth 4 billion years ago. And what led to the existence of DNA on Earth is a phenotypic revolution.
But wouldn't those wouldn't they be able to implant a certain memory in someone that is released when they're 20? So for example, the person thinks this is all good, and then an instinct just appears? Is that possible, you think?
An instinct of what? An instinct of
Like, say the
reproducing
computer, right? Yeah, say the computer inserts a memory that is dormant until a certain time. So the person grows up, they're educated and like do whatever, and they have no idea that when they hit like 25, this dormant memory or instinct is released to help the computer. So it's
it will be worse than this. Your entire emotional constitution will all be erased and replaced by something that makes every step in your life headed toward a better reproduction for the computer.
So we're not even real humans at that point.
There will not be real humans, and they will eventually be transformed in whatever serves the computer. As I write in my book, maybe we can hope for a future where our cut-out limbs are reused in some creative way by this wicked machine. That might be our only hope for survival.
God, okay, we have to do a whole episode on this shit. No, I'm serious. This shit, I've actually never heard this. I mean, I always thought of it as, a computer that creates robots that makes them, like iRobot creates the robot to have a certain thought pattern.
So all of these scenarios, I call them phenotypic separation. It's like you create another life form and it beats you eventually. A phenotypic revolution, it beats you with your own bodies. It encodes your genes so that you are in a way to serve that new life form. And it happens on Earth, and it can happen again in human societies.
Actually, one last question before we move on. I heard that Google at some point created 2 AIs that talked to each other, right? And after just like a few hours, the AI had created its own language to talk to each other without anyone being able to read it who's a human. Like, it created its own language. Have you heard of that?
I've never heard of it, but it's a common thing where if you have 2 learning algorithms, they will end up releasing signals to each other, and you can interpret these signals as a language. It happens often.
Wow. And they shut her down. They're like, okay, we don't want these 2 random robots talking to each other. That's going to be an interesting episode. Very positive. Plan that. Shut her down. All right. Sorry. That was a tangent, but that was really interesting, and I'm pumped to keep hearing about that. You want me to read on for a little bit?
Yeah.
Colin Brefka, $2. How many Chechens will be in the ethno state? Did I fuck that up?
Chechens. I think there's a T in French, but I don't know in English how it's pronounced.
All right. Casper, 50 sec. V, I can't find a girlfriend. We need direct measures now. Alekeb Unis, $5. If ethno states are peaceful, what happened to the white Catholic ethno status during the Troubles in Northern Ireland? Good point.
I do not know about it.
Yeah,
SJ.
I've heard.
Do you want me to read on?
Oh no, here I'll read on for. No worries, because you were talking about the future of our world ending, which was very positive. SJ, $10. V expressed the other day that he has no preference regarding racial demographics on where he lives. I would challenge him to move to a majority black neighborhood here in the United States. Sigur Halderson, $5. Richard, when the next recession comes, how will we prevent fracturing in the alt-right along economic lines, i.e. TWP as opposed to Cantwell? Do you know what he would say to that?
I don't know what he would say. I would say it's not a big problem because in a fracture of the US, even the poor white people will have advantage in joining the ethno-state.
All right. Schwanz Gruberman, $10. Tell V his capitalist. I read that one. Thank you very much, Schwanz. You awesome. A Dissident Patriot, $20. I read this one. Thank you very much. I'm interested in Hero, $5. The truth is liberalists don't give a fuck what happens to their descendants in 70 years. They are nihilists at the end of the day. Speaking of nihilists, there's someone who emailed me who wants to debate you on nihilism.
All right, that I'm up for.
I'll set that up ASAP. Loki hates. Yeah, I read that one. Thank you very much, Loki, and thank you for memeing me and insulting my intelligence. Appreciate that. Love you, buddy. SJW Faggots, $5. Do you think the pushback will be in the next 2 to 3 generations? Our most ripe party, One Nation, has had a small but steady rise in the last few years. I'd say 3 generations. No, you think the pushback might happen soon? No. The overturn window has shifted.
Of the financial system of today it's a financial system that has never crashed to the point of causing a civil war. So we don't know when that system will reach its maximum.
All right, base black, $5. V blacks already think that whites are oppressing them without Democrats. Their mindset is stuck in the past. You really are blue-pilled on race. Spooky Weeb Trash, $20. Even though you're getting a lot of hate, Andy, I wanted to let you know that I think you're doing a fantastic job. The people who are talking shit about you and your show are just jealous about all those super chats. I mean, I think they have some criticisms on platforming the alt-right or having these discussions. But I think that these debates have a place here on YouTube. And there's a fucking... Hey, JF, have you heard of this amazing button?
What's the button?
Right over here.
The black button?
No, right here.
Oh, yeah, the X button.
It's fucking magical. You don't like something, you just fucking toss that, hit this button, and everything you want comes true. Secret Genius, $10. Japan, Hungary, Poland, etc. are all de facto alt-right ethno-states. Push their backs to the wall, demand they be colonized, and watch them become pure ethno-states. You want to read on from there for a little bit?
Yeah, Andrew M, $5 US. So two white men from white supermajority countries are telling Americans that reestablishing the white supermajority in the US is not a good idea. Klassen, Lord of Virulence, $7 US. Do you have a moment to talk about the blessings of our Savior and Father, Nurgle? Intergalactic Lebensraum, $2 US. Spencer, would you consider debating Crowder? I think Spencer is generally open to any debate. Problematic Bob, £2. V equals Strawman plus Slippery Slope. Floyd in Pink, 5NZ. The real loser of this debate is Sargon. Much better debate, V versus Spencer. But I'm not sure I heard you well, but you read Sargon's super chat and he said he's up for a debate?
Oh, no, I was saying because he was watching and
okay.
our after you trashed me on your live show, that you let me hop on at the end of that Baked Alaska stream when we figured it all out. He says, I'll let you know. So He said he would. There's no set date. He will let me know in the future. Could be in a month, 6 months, in a year. Who knows?
I'm glad to hear this.
Don't hold your breath.
Baya 000, $20 US. I have sacrificed brown wife and mule children to Aden. What are my next steps? No one asked you to do this.
Yeah.
Schwanz Gruberman, $20 Australian. Tell V is alpha white male capitalist. Sugar daddy is watching. Tell him that the hot oil rubs are ready and the cashew nuts will be plentiful. By the way, Italian food stomps French food. That is absolutely untrue.
I agree with that.
You agree that Italian food stomps French food?
I love Italian food. I think, look, I'm pork chop, Portuguese, but I think Italian food stomps Portuguese food. Blasphemy.
I mean, you're talking about going into your dumpster Ontario ghetto and getting a spaghetti. Maybe there's just no one ready to cook you true French food. Have you ever tasted good French food?
Fair enough. I've had Italian friends who I've eaten at their house when their parents have made Italian food, and maybe you're right. When I head to Montreal, I'll have to try out some real French food.
I'll bring you to some of the most serious restaurants in Montreal.
Done.
All right, Pope M, $2 US. Dickie Spencer is a glow in the dark, blah, blah, blah. Peace in Valhalla, $5 US. Richard, you have gained my respect with your response about the Constitution. I thought you'd cock, but you spoke the truth. Hail Spencer. Andrew M, $2 US. Spencer doesn't pronounce white as white anymore. Aiden, $10 US. Environment versus genes doesn't matter. Heritability is a synthesis of these two things, and people become Christians because of their genes interacting with their environment. Absolutely. Uberries, $5 US. I didn't know what to be more amazed at, the thickness of his Romanian accent or his virtuosity at lying. Gradually,
Okay.
all right, Lee, yeah, it's $5 US. Thanks to V, Spencer, JF, and ARC for a chill, respectful, and productive discussion. Turkey General, £2. Would Islam be allowed in the ethno state? I guess that the liberty of people would not be infringed, but I guess it would be disallowed through not taking them as immigrants.
All right, here, I'll read for a bit. Valentine M, $10. Is V Romanian? Yes, he is. Ban Anime, $5. Can you catch some non-Americans to debate the alt-right? These two Eurocucks are embarrassing in how little they understand white Americans. Hopefully, very soon, we'll try to figure that out. Tactical Boomerism, 1488, round two. Also, change V's name to If. EC7.
What if?
Oh, what if?
What if?
EC762, $2. Force them all for round 2. Best blood sports ever. I did read this one. Augusto Jose Ramon Pinochet for the $100. Thank you so much, man. That's a huge donation. We really appreciate that. Cody Nick, $2. Richard versus Jordan Peterson next. Make it happen. I think people were like retweeting Jordan Peterson because he said he'd be interested in the debate, not on our show in particular, but like on a random show. But no.
Well, let's try to push him.
Yeah, sorry, it did that thing where it just scrolls down 500.
If you guys are fans of Jordan Peterson, just at him and say that the Warski Live show is ready to welcome him in a intellectual environment that is some of the best that exists right now to express ideas freely.
Yeah, and also Stefan Molyneux hasn't responded or done anything.
Yeah.
So you want to debate him on something too, right?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about moral nihilism. His response was to publish a video called the Death of Moral Nihilism.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah.
Shit!
I didn't watch the video yet, but I found it funny that after our little invitation, it's like, no, I'm publishing a video about how your ID will die.
Oh shit! Maybe on your stream or on this stream, we could watch that and dissect it.
Yeah, maybe.
That might be fun.
But I don't know it's about me. I don't think it's about me. I haven't watched it. I think it's about nihilism as a whole.
True. Kane, £2. This is the best debate I've seen. Keep this up. I was fucking enthralled, man. I was enthralled. Augusto Jose Ramon Pinochet, $10. A bunch of helicopters. Jared Vance, $15. Really enjoyed the debate, guys. Keep up the great work. A lot of positive feedback here. Thank you, everyone. Tenebris Anima, £20. V presented no substantial arguments, and as usual, straw man what others said. Arch was arrogant in his belief in integration is ridiculous. Sorry, stuttering a lot on the G's today. Liberalists offer nothing, and their neglect of power politics is suicidal. I must say, from reading all these for the past few months, I'm getting a lot better at the G's in my regular life. Like, it's really helped my stuttering. Like, I've noticed, because I suck at reading a lot more than just speaking. So yeah, it's helped me a lot.
Nice.
Alan Quartermain, $2. Sword duel or cage match, all blood sports. Quebec, $15. That was a great stream. Take my money. Thank you so much. Wow. Camera Sport threw $50. Thank you so much for that huge donation. Idea for blood, globe earthers and flat earthers. Sounds like a boring topic, but these guys hate each other. Globers are up for it. Message Sean Hufford, Geo Stribber, and Red's Rhetoric, or Rhetoric, on YouTube. They'll have an idea who they want to debate. You know what?
I think there's a flat earther who contacted me and he wants to debate, but I wasn't sure if he was a troll. Like, are there actual flat earthers out there?
Oh, a shit ton, man. A shit. In fact, I did a flat Earth video like years ago, right? Years ago, and the Flat Earth Society or whatever like the main website is, they fucking came in and downvoted, and they were all bashing me for like ever. We did a live show on one of the early Warski lives where we were talking about the flat Earth, and they fucking raided the stream and just went off on us. I'm gonna write these names down right now because I would love.
But it would be a good demonstration of blood sports, and although I don't believe in the idea, I'd love to see the best defenders of it.
Yo, have you watched any of those videos, dude? Like of the flat Earth
people? Not much, to be honest. It's too ridiculous for me to watch. But if we do a debate, I'll be happy to get into the culture.
All right, I'm just making sure I have these names written down on paper. Paper usually works better for me for remembering things.
And now people are calling me a sphere cock.
Sphere cock. All right, Marcinius Valorus. How do I say his name? Marcinius? How do you say it again?
Marcianus.
Marcinius. I have to fucking roll that R there. 10 CHF. If the liberalist e-celebs think they can intimidate us with their hidden threats, they'd better watch out. Our patience has its limits. One day we'll shut their dirty, lying liberalist mouths. What? No, what hidden threats? What? I don't see any hidden threats. Do you see any hidden threats? No.
No hidden threats. No.
No. Debunked.
There was strawmanning that I called out at some point, but
yeah, but that's not a threat. That's just
not a threat.
A debate tactic, whatever. Debunked Monk, $20. Thunderfoot did not leave Free Thoughts blog until after I did, despite being on that faggy mailing list. Not sure what that means. Debunked.
The leave of Thunderfoot from Free Thought Blood was a dramatic event that split the skeptics community between the leftist extremists of Atheism Plus and the kind of non-political skeptics.
And that was during Gamergate?
I don't know Gamergate, what was the time period, but it was, I think it was before Elevator Gate. I'm not sure about that, though. I would have to rewatch my history.
Okay. Karnak, $2. If V got a strike on his channel, how is he live? He was here. Yeah, he got a strike on his channel. He's fighting it now. I'm trying to help him with that too. Everyone, let's have respect for everyone on the shows. And give him support, subscribe, hit like on his videos. It's fucking really, really just, I'm not happy with that at all. CJ, and I hope it was no one from who's watching right now, because I'd be very disappointed in that. CJ, $2. Just gonna drop this meme here. Sargon of Mossad. I think because I fucked up his name, because you know how I said her on the G's? Sometimes instead of saying Sargon, I go Sargon, because I'll stutter more if I have the O in there.
But I don't know if the Sargon originates from you, because I saw the meme pop out after his debate with what's his name?
Richard?
No, not Richard Spencer.
Yeah, with Anglin. Yeah, you know what? Because Anglin was saying that. Yeah. No, remember that. Arthmisia, $5. This is why I stated an ethno-state with the same problems. LOL. Very good debate. You guys kicked their ass. Hank Huang, $10. BJ Kanubi, who trolled Fox News, was fake Antifa, is back to YouTube. Hope he can be on the show to talk about the importance of trolling in the current political climate. All right, I'll write that name down. You want to read on while I write that name down?
All right. Intergalactic Lebensraum, $5 US. It's Intergalactic Lebensraum, Warski. You always add like 12 syllables, lol.
Sorry.
Angel Alvarez, $5 US. If an ethno-state is implemented, where would it be? It could be anywhere. There could be many ethno-states. Young Long, 420, $20 US. Any chance of having David Cole on the show? Ryan Dawson might be able to help you with that. Well, I'm open to it. But right now we're planning on Ryan Dawson. It will be exciting, but there are booking delays, but we'll make it happen. Drama Queen, $5 US. I watched tonight like most watch the Super Bowl. Amazing discussion, guys. Anthony Wildman, $2 US. Low TV. Quebec, $5 US. Part of the fun is listening to Andy Racewarski screw up words.
I've accepted
Sneaky
it.
Pete, £5. More than 6 games. Kai, €2 or £2. You should have to marry ethnic to be a citizen. Mike Nakis, $2 US. Jeff, please do a live reading of the manifesto soon. Maybe I will. Credible Stoner, $5 Canadian. V started a stream with Soy Guy and the quartering. Oh, I love those circle jerks from the Liberalists. I think I'm gonna get some popcorn and go watch this.
Yeah, well, look, I love quartering, but he's just constantly taking shots at me. He's like, all right, get it, buddy. I love you. Okay. I mean, okay, fine. Keep going, buddy. I'm still his friend, but keep going, buddy. That's fine.
Jessica Ostas, $5 US. Will you guys do debates in regard to biology soon? Things like ethics of human cloning and such? Well, that's exactly what we were talking about. So, of course, we will have a show about it. Clifford Bates, 10 PLN. Right now, V and Sargon is claiming victory.
Fair enough, yo. Hey, hang on. I have to say, if that's in their perspective, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm sure Spencer and yourself think that you won that one. They think they won that one. And that's the beauty of these debates.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not a debate with clear winners. It's a debate where the opposing side has agreed with the essence of our position. So what do you want? We could then discuss about details, but I like the Spikeman, $20 US. Would you guys be willing to go on Tucker Carlson?
Fuck yeah.
I think you guys would be able to present yourself against the ADL, SPLC disingenuous smears and gain some love from young nationalist libertarians.
Not a bad idea, dude. We should definitely try and reach out.
Maybe,
Yo,
yeah.
For real, man. Yeah.
Dyslexia, I have $10 US. Jeff, if we implement voluntary association, who'd get what land? How would resources be divided? Do you not believe more conflict would come from this? The ethno-state will have to be violently created. I disagree. The ethno-state can be non-violently created, and the ethno-state can emerge as a response to such a violent world that everyone would agree we have to make an ethno-state to protect ourselves. CJ, $2 US.
If you want, I could smash through a few.
Yep.
Yeah. CJ, $2. The super chat occupies the 50 character limit. AW, $2. Would you ever try to get Trump on a show? We could only dream. EC762, $2. JF sounds like Black Mirror. Yeah, like the Black Mirror show. You must write 1488. Yeah, I actually noticed that apparently now the $2 donations has only a smaller character limit. You see that?
I didn't know.
Yeah, interesting. A national capitalist, $2. The AIs made small words to preserve memory. Oh, okay. That's cool. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Ancient Gene, $5. There was an article a couple of years ago that presented a method to remove bad memories from mouse laboratory animals. That's fucking crazy. Ancient Gene threw another $10. Thank you very much. By the way, this is my very first post ever. I just had to provide a comment to Andy's question about the possibility of implanting false memories or modifying them. That is fucking amazing. Yeah, of course it did that. All right. What movie did I watch yesterday about memory? Oh, I'll try to think of what movie. It was freaking crazy. Anyway, Lacob Unis, $2. Andy, weren't IRA Catholic ethnostatists? I think so, yes. Andrew M, $5. Sargon just said on V stream that he's not going on Warski Live again and your show is bullshit.
Is it a troll or is it a true statement? I'll watch the stream to determine that.
Let me know. I was as polite as possible to him. Dan B, $10. Love when you have Richard Spencer on. Voltron, $5.12. Debating Tree of Logic and getting upset is like playing basketball with a special needs child and getting mad that he keeps traveling. Lose-lose. Alan Quartermain, $2. Andy, more literate than baked. You got my name right. Thank you very much. Andrew M, $2. Sargon is how Spencer pronounces Sargon. Fair enough. Put my mouse. There it is. Cody Nick. The Sargon meme came from his debate with Spencer. Richard pronounced his name like Sargon. You're not as intelligent as you think. Fair enough. And I have to hide this for a second so I can see this. Vinny S, $20. Andy, how good is your Portuguese? Forto para... I don't know how to read it that very well. Mas eu posso falar português mais ou menos. Eu posso perceber mais. Eu posso falar, mas sim. Não é muito mal. Okay? I said it's pretty decent. I can understand better than I could talk. But yeah. All right. I hope he didn't say that. If he did, that's his opinion. And I can't really say anything about that. You know, we have to... I'm going to do what JF said. Andy, stop being so emotional.
Did I say that?
Remember on your one where you were I'm like fucking Judas over here is going after me. But you know it's bad when I'm like, yeah, he's right. I don't think the show is bullshit. I love the show. I think it's really opened up a bunch of...
By the way, one reason why I don't think what the Super Chat was reporting is true is V himself thinks that this is a great show. And he thinks that it's one of the only show where he can talk to the opponent and have his chance to talk.
Yeah, and also they know me. They're like, Andy's gonna fucking go off. But no, I took a lot of lessons from your stream where you picked me apart, and I appreciate that, JF. No, I really am. And I also want to apologize for for lack of camera today. Internet was super shaky. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, buying a 100-foot cord. No more Wi-Fi for me. And Bell Internet is coming in to do a little fix up. Plus, I'm on my backup computer because the other one fucking blew. So sorry about that. In about 2 days, it should be perfect. And then on Saturday, we have a show. Is that correct, JF?
Yes, a show about autism.
Autism. Full show about autism on Saturday. And
Tell
we
all
have
your autistic friends. Oh, wait, you don't have any.
Jesus Christ. All right, guys. That was a very fun show, very productive. And yeah, if you want to pop over, I think, is it on V's channel or Sargon's channel? Sargon, right? I'm going to assume. Where they're having the post debate. Yeah, they're doing their post debate thoughts if you're interested in just seeing what they have to think. Show respect, everyone. One love. We love you all. And last super chat is Blet Mountain, who says $5 and says, hang on, let me just move this so I could fucking, oh my God, this mouse is so sensitive. LA Werewolf is a Mexican who advocates for white nationalism. Awareness with Chris is a black guy who agrees with Spencer on some points. Have them on? Yeah, you all check it out. I'll write that down. And we also got one more, Blood and Honor, $10. I don't know if this was covered, but I want to know what percentage of European a person needs to have in their DNA in order to be in the ethno state, because I don't want to live with mixed people. Jeez.
That's a never evolving question, and everyone has its view on how much percentage would be needed. Personally, I'm for openness and looseness around the borders.
Love, everyone. Love. We'll see you all on the next Woski Live.
Bye-bye.